The story begins in the Exiled Zone. A boy stands looking at a screen. It displays information about the Club of the Living Dead, where death is hope. It's a tournament with 7 participants, but only one comes out alive, winning a prize of 3 million. The boy ponders how that money would be enough to help that person. Suddenly, someone else appears, slapping him on the back and asking what he's staring at. Embarrassed, he responds that it's nothing important. However, another guy leans over and notices it's about the Club of the Living Dead. Seeing the slogan about finding hope in death, he dismisses it as nonsense. He explains it's just a twisted slogan by those bastards to make people kill each other. In the end, this game is nothing but a death board where lives are toys for entertainment. He tells the boy not to even think about joining, saying it wasn't easy raising him to this point. The protagonist ignores this, asking instead if he brought any supplies. The man shows 2 boxes strapped to his chest and declares they'll have a feast tonight. The boy smiles but immediately thinks about Alvin's arm. He knows that the way things are progressing, they don't have much time left. Alvin says they should move quickly before others notice their supplies. He grabs the boy, saying they need to head home. The boy simply says, "All right." Meanwhile, behind a truck, a man demands the return of his supplies, but he's struck in the face with a hammer, told he won't need food because he has no teeth to eat it with. The attacker speeds off in a vehicle, shouting that he has to pay if he wants any. He throws another supply box into the car, bragging about the day's successful haul. Nearby, 2 brothers are watching silently, realizing how dangerous that route has become. The older brother warns his sibling to hold back, but he ignores the advice. He tosses one of their supplies for the fallen man, telling him to take it, run home, and eat before someone else robs him. The man, grateful, limps away and murmuring thanks for finally having food. In the Exiled Zones, people constantly fight for food. Those unable to defend themselves simply await death. Alvin turns back, urging them to leave quickly, but as the man enters a building, 2 others are already waiting for him. They comment on how he finally managed to get food and corner him. Humanity, kindness, and trust mean nothing in the Sin Zone. The boy asks Alvin why he gave away their food. Alvin replies that there's still half left for them, so it's fine. Later, the children reach the place the gods forgot. The boy tells Alvin that once he gets a new arm, he'll finally be able to work in the jurisdiction and live an honest life. The only downside is they'll have far less time to spend together. That's when he notices Alvin has already fallen asleep. The boy covers him with a blanket and gazes at the prosthetic arm. He vividly remembers the day it happened. Alvin had suggested they go together, but the boy had insisted he easily grab the supplies in return. He asked Alvin to wait while he headed toward the commotion. Alvin stayed behind, watching until a hand appeared from the shadows. He was taken away. When the protagonist returned, his brother was nowhere to be found. That's when he heard chewing and cracking sounds. He cautiously entered the alley, calling for Alvin. He dropped the supply box when he saw the scene. Alvin was writhing in agony, begging Shannon for help. The boy saw a man feasting and even offering him a piece. Enraged, the boy lost control. Now he blames himself for leaving Alvin alone that day. He pauses, lost in thought. Time is running out, and he begs Alvin to hold on a bit longer. Getting a new arm for him is a debt he must repay. He leaves home, promising to return before dawn. A countdown begins, 10 seconds. Someone lunges at the protagonist with a punch. He declares he'll get the damn 3 million. The Celestial City is ruled by the Rings of Power. Beyond the Celestial region lies the Jurisdiction Zone, and beyond that, the Exiled Zone. All children are tested at the age of 8 to determine their supernatural abilities. Based on their power, a collar is placed around their neck. This collar, called a ring, classifies their power into 5 levels and colors. Gold rings indicate special grade powers. Advanced levels wear silver rings. Those of average or below average ability receive bronze or gray rings. At the bottom are those without talent, marked by a black ring. At a bus entrance, a man remarks that the protagonist's body isn't bad and orders him inside. Once there, the protagonist is analyzed. Strangely, the system seems to malfunction. The men find this odd, and the protagonist explains it always happens when he collects supplies, but has never been a problem. One man asks if this will cause trouble. Another, wearing a cap, says they must run the scan again before letting him enter the jurisdiction. They test him once more. Meanwhile, some men are complaining, telling him to hurry up and stop holding everyone back. They call him useless, saying he should realize people are waiting behind him. One guy slaps him on the ear, asking if he's deaf. A group nearby is just watching, but the protagonist glances back silently without saying a word. Angrily, the guy asks what kind of look that was. Turning to the men, the protagonist calmly tells them to scan him again. He really needs to participate in this. At that moment, he dodges the guy's punch effortlessly, causing the attacker to fall face first, slamming his groin into the ground like a fool. The people on the bus immediately notice the kid isn't so weak after all. A long-haired guy smoking a cigarette watches quietly. The attacker gets up, clutching his crotch, calling the boy a filthy brat. He pulls out a blade, admitting he underestimated him. But by then, the boys are already boarding the bus, thanking the staff. The man in the cap tells the attacker to save his revenge for when they're inside the field. The man in the yellow shirt sees this, furious that someone with a brown collar is acting so smug. Meanwhile, the guy in the blue shirt complains it's ridiculous to accept a filthy brat while rejecting him. The man in the green shirt remarks that the tournament has to be entertaining, which is why they send both the weak and the strong. The crowd loves watching a promising youth die tragically in the arena. The long-haired man snuffs out his cigarette, saying it's people like them who give powerless individuals the label of evil. He adds that they're lucky they'll get to breathe another day, just barely. The group considers starting a fight, but a bald man stops them, suggesting they wait because the kid looks familiar. The long-haired man says that if the boy isn't recognized yet, it must be because he hasn't won enough fights to be remembered. He shows the face of a foolish-looking guy, asking if they know who he is. They immediately recognize him as the record holder for 8 consecutive victories. The guards tell Qin to board the bus so they can leave. On this bus, the motto is health for the victors. Because boarding is a one-way trip, no one who enters escapes the fate of death. The scene shifts to the jurisdiction zone. A man working on a computer notices something unusual, commenting that the boy's eye resembles hers. He identifies him as number 57, an 18-year-old named Shannon. Perhaps he's the child of God. Meanwhile, the boy reflects on how he needs to return quickly, or Alvin will scold him. Given Alvin's personality, he might even beat him to death. That's when Shannon notices a reflection of someone approaching with a knife. He reclines his seat, kicking the man's hand, causing the knife to embed itself in the ceiling. Shannon gets up and asks the man if he wants to fight right there. Qin continues to watch silently. The attacker smirks, saying he enjoys seeing him resist. It would be boring if he died too easily. But Shannon doesn't want to waste energy here. He needs to finish this quickly and handle what's coming next. The problem is that he doesn't want anyone to know his true strength, as it would make him a target for everyone. He stares at the man, considering his options, when in a flash, Qin appears, landing an uppercut on the attacker. The man mutters, "More of this," as he collapses, leaving Shannon bewildered. The driver thanks Qin, asking him to keep the troublemaker in check until they reach their destination. Qin agrees, saying he'll handle it. Shannon is shocked that Qin knocked the guy out with a single punch. He thanks him, but in his mind he knows he wouldn't stand a chance against someone like Qin. Qin remarks that Shannon is naive for thanking an opponent. He warns Shannon to hope their paths don't cross unless he wins today's fight. Just then, the knife falls from the ceiling, comically hitting the unconscious man. The scene shifts to the entrance of the jurisdiction. As the bus exits the tunnel, Shannon is greeted by an extravagant, modern city. It's a stark contrast to the environment he came from. This is the region of the Advance, and before him stands a massive statue marking the jurisdiction arena. Shannon is in awe, marveling at everything. But the guards urge the group to keep moving. The camera pans to the arena, flames roaring beneath the skull-shaped structure. The crowd is wild, eagerly anticipating the start of the combat. Shannon walks through the corridors, noticing something strange. Men are pushing carts loaded with bodies. Shannon quickly realizes these are the corpses of dead participants. The workers haul them to a door, dumping them carelessly inside. It's clear to Shannon that people like him are treated as trash here. It underscores how little the arena fighters are valued. Meanwhile, in an isolated house, a girl stands outside a door, calling for the young master. She informs him that the day of prophecy has arrived. It's time for him to begin his journey. Back at the arena in the preparation room, a man sharpens a blade. Another participant wielded brass knuckles, while another had jeweled daggers. A baton and a club were also among the weapons. Meanwhile, Shannon was the only one without a weapon. In the elimination round, there are 7 participants but only 6 weapons. The audience places bets on who they believe will win. The one with the least votes ends up weaponless, and the one at the top of the rankings gets first pick. Naturally, the one with the lowest percentage of bets is forced to enter unarmed. For Shannon, however, this is an advantage. Not only is he ranked last, but he's also the only one without a weapon. Most of the other participants will focus on those at the top. As Qin passes by, he gives Shannon a long, piercing look. For someone as strong as Qin, surviving in the Exiled Zone must not have been too difficult. Another man approaches Shannon, asking if he knows Qin. He mentions that Qin has a 30% chance of victory, according to the audience. Shannon replies that he doesn't know him, but the man insists it's suspicious. After all, Qin only respects strong people, and he had helped Shannon on the bus. Shannon dismisses the accusation, saying the man is overthinking it, especially since he doesn't even have a weapon. The 30% man sneers, saying he doesn't like liars. Suddenly, he looks ready to stab Shannon in the stomach, but Shannon is unfazed by the intimidation. It's nothing new to him. At last, the tournament is about to begin. Before entering the arena, the participants are handed accessories, microbombs. The organizers call it a special gift. One of the participants picks one up and sarcastically remarks that it looks like they're being toyed with. Shannon attaches the bomb to the side of his neck and asks if they can start. In the midst of a roaring, excited crowd, a fierce battle is about to commence. Only one person can leave the arena alive, and everyone needs to give their all before the timer runs out. They have a maximum of 15 minutes to finish the fight. Any show of mercy will trigger the bomb. Most bets are on Shannon being the first to die, as it seems he's already the target of 5 other participants. Qin watches silently from the sidelines. Meanwhile, the green-haired man notices something unusual. It's not going as expected. The guy with the baton smashes into the railing, wondering how the damn kid is dodging all of his attacks so easily. He stretches his baton towards Shannon, telling him to do something. The man continues a flurry of attacks, but Shannon dodges with ease, even mocking him for being so slow. He ducks under another strike and quips that the guy is leaving himself wide open. Then Shannon lands a solid punch to the man's cheek, sending him sprawling, drooling on the ground. The crowd is amazed at Shannon's insane reflexes. But his problem is clear: he isn't very strong. The down man laughs, saying Shannon's pathetic punch didn't hurt at all. Embarrassed, Shannon mutters that it's probably because the guy has such tough skin. The man yells that he's going to kill Shannon, when someone suddenly appears behind him and asks, "What are you going to kill?" It's the man from the bus, who declares he'll kill the brat. With a single strike, the man drops dead. Shannon quickly realizes the killer's intent is deadly serious. The attacker says Shannon has to pay for humiliating him on the bus. There's no way he'll leave satisfied without killing him. By now, participants 5 and 7 are already dead, and 10 minutes remain. Another participant grabs the arena gate, screaming that he doesn't want to be part of this anymore. He demands the organizers open the door, saying he doesn't care about the reward anymore. In response, the organizer simply presses a button. The microbomb on the man's neck detonates, leaving him as nothing but a memory. Another participant in the arena screams in despair. Meanwhile, the 30% man is furious that these fools are stealing his spotlight. He takes advantage of the chaos, stepping over a fallen participant. Shannon, on the other hand, is dodging a flurry of attacks from another man. This man is faster and more precise than before, clearly hiding his true strength earlier. The problem is, without a weapon, Shannon can't win just by dodging. In his mind, he asks Alvin what he should do. Living in the Exiled Zone, they never had time to relax. Even Alvin, despite being older, admitted he couldn't land a hit on Shannon lately. To Alvin, his brother seemed like some kind of supernatural creature. But Alvin also warned him, dodging alone wouldn't work against someone truly intent on killing him. Attacking was the key to victory, and they needed to train even harder. In a flashback, Shannon remembers jumping to avoid a sparring strike. Over time, however, he noticed something strange about his body. No matter how much he trained, he didn't seem to get any stronger. Alvin pointed out that while Shannon's dodging improved significantly, his physical strength remained stagnant. At least Alvin joked Shannon could outlast enemies by dodging until they grew old and died. To Shannon, it was all bizarre and he had no idea why. Alvin once asked if his lack of progress had something to do with that woman he always dreamed about, the one with the divine ring around her neck. Shannon dismissed the idea as impossible. How could someone like him have any connection to a divine ring? Alvin told him to forget about it, saying he should at least be happy he could always run away and survive. The problem was that because of his weakness, Shannon always had to hide behind his brother, who only had one arm. He hated being so weak and helpless. He just wanted to grow stronger, refusing to accept this destiny. Finally, Shannon decided enough was enough. It was time to stop being a coward and take action. He dashed toward his opponent, who taunted him to come at full force. The man swung his weapon, but Shannon dodged. He tried another strike, which Shannon ducked under, but this time he took a hit to his leg. Thinking he saw an opening, Shannon aimed a punch, but the man caught his hand mid-swing, mocking him for such a feeble strike. With ease, the man flung Shannon into the air, sending him sliding across the ground like trash. The crowd jeered, calling Shannon a delusional fool. The man laughed, calling him nothing but a filthy rat who loved to hide. Meanwhile, Kim Tian observed silently. The boy seemed incredibly skilled in some ways, but absurdly weak in others. At the same time, someone approached Shannon's house. They knocked on the door, and a voice from inside asked if it was Shannon outside. Back in the arena, the 30% man pulled out a Glock. Shannon immediately noticed something odd. A microbomb was heading directly toward one of the drones filming the event. He knew something big was about to happen. Number 3 fired his shot, which detonated near the man in the yellow shirt and the drone. The unfortunate guy was left covered in soot. Number 3, on the other hand, was impressed, remarking that Shannon had managed to dodge, even though he had been aiming at him. Shannon, however, was dazed and partially deafened. Yellow shirt lunged at number 3, punching the gun out of his hand. The pistol skidded across the floor, landing nearby. As the two fought, the gun lay just within reach. Number 3 was on the verge of turning the tables, overpowering Yellow Shirt, who screamed at Shannon to grab the gun and kill Number 3. But Shannon didn't seem eager to comply. Yellow Shirt shouted that if Shannon killed this guy, he'd win the 3 million and walk out alive. However, Number 3 delivered a devastating blow, leaving Yellow Shirt writhing in agony. The final boss stood up, complaining about the chaos in the arena, but announced it was time to move on to the next match. At that moment, a gunshot echoed. It wasn't Shannon who had fired. It was another contestant. This man picked up the gun, claiming the 3 million as his prize. With that, the last 2 contestants fell to the ground, lifeless. The arena was nearly cleared. Outside, someone watched everything unfold on a screen. They muttered that Shannon couldn't be allowed to die like this. Suddenly, an electric surge coursed through the city. Lights and screens flickered and died. Within moments, the entire arena was plunged into darkness. The perpetrator? A maniac with some peculiar motive. On the ground, Shannon muttered that he wouldn't let the man take the 3 million. The man scoffed, asking how Shannon planned to stop him without a weapon. Then the gun fired. For Shannon, time seemed to slow. He could feel the bullet approaching, the warm breeze carrying the metallic scent of blood. In a display of inhuman reflexes, Shannon dodged the bullet, muttering that it was too slow. He taunted his attacker, asking how someone could miss from such close range. The man, stunned, declared it impossible for someone with a black ring around their neck to dodge a bullet. He accused Shannon of hiding his true power. Shannon, on the verge of collapse, struggled to stay conscious. The man snapped, yelling for Shannon to die, and lunged at him with a blade. But for someone who had just dodged a bullet, the blade was laughably slow. While Shannon's strikes weren't powerful, his opponent wasn't particularly formidable either. If Shannon could stay fast enough, he might turn the tide of the fight. He lunged, aiming for the man's neck, but hesitated before landing the final blow. An overwhelming, terrifying energy suddenly demanded his attention. There were still 4 seconds on the clock. Qin Tian, watching from the sidelines, was puzzled by what the pink-haired boy was thinking. Suddenly, the blackout reached the arena. It was clear that this wasn't normal. Someone was approaching, a user of supernatural abilities. The microbombs around their necks deactivated, and the man on the ground celebrated, relieved to still be alive. But Shannon was more concerned about the person closing in. The newcomer entered the arena, noting the power outage. The organizers announced they reset the timer and resumed the fight after another preparation period. Number 1 demanded to know what would happen to the 3 million prize since there were now 2 survivors. The response was that the decision would be made by those at the top once everything was sorted. Shannon noticed something strange. A man in a suit appeared beside him, commenting on how miserable Shannon looked. He asked if Shannon wasn't going to thank his savior. Naturally, Shannon asked what he meant. But before he could finish, he collapsed like a fool. Even the man who had come to kidnap him grew frustrated with how weak he was. The guards began evacuating everyone. Seeing the man taking Shannon away, one of the guards reminded him that participants couldn't leave the club until everything was resolved. The man ignored him, placed a hand on Shannon's shoulder, and asked if he wasn't listening. That's when he was hit with a slap so hard it slammed him into the wall. The others asked Qin Tian what he was thinking so much about. He replied that he felt a change in the wind. "That boy seems important," he said. "I hope to be him again." Outside, a luxury car was parked. Some petty criminals nearby were murmuring about how it would be a good idea to steal it. Inside the car, the man who had abducted Shannon was growing impatient, wondering how long the boy planned to stay asleep. Suddenly, a surge of electricity ran through the car, and poor Shannon woke up completely fried. He had no idea what had happened back at the club. Immediately, he asked who the man was and why he was there. In that same moment, he felt it, a chilling sensation through his body. He realized the man before him was a user of supernatural abilities. Even from this distance, the presence of the man sent shivers down his spine. The man calmly asked, "Aren't you going to thank your savior?" Meanwhile, Shannon's mind raced. Why had this supernatural user saved him? After seeing firsthand the grim fate of those with a black ring, he couldn't understand it. Despite his curiosity and doubts, he decided it was better not to get involved with this person. The man suddenly introduced himself as Leo Chuan. Shannon froze, startled. The Leo family was the 3rd most powerful of all. If that were true, then the ring on his neck. Leo Chuan revealed it, a golden ring. He warned Shannon not to think about escaping, as his life was now Leo's responsibility. Then Leo Chuan called him Child of the Divine. According to legend, above the special grade exists one more rank, the Divine. A single individual of this rank could wipe out hundreds of special grade beings, a presence akin to that of a god. Shannon admitted that he heard of a Leo rank as Divine, someone named Leo Song something. Leo Chuan completed the name Leo Songting. Shannon grew pensive. He asked if Leo Songting was Chuan's grandfather. Chuan explained that the legends Shannon had heard weren't entirely accurate. He clarified that only 3 individuals had ever reached a true divine ranking. His grandfather, Leo Songting, a woman with the ability to foresee the future and immortality, Miss Wendy, and another individual who disappeared as soon as their divine ranking was discovered. Chuan added that Shannon was considered a divine being because he was the son of Miss Wendy. Confused, Shannon pointed to his black ring and dismissed the idea. Child of the Divine? That's ridiculous, he said. But then he stopped to think. Could the woman who frequently appeared in his dreams be his mother? Leo Chuan stated that Shannon must have countless questions, but the priority now was to ensure his safety. His face had been exposed across the entire jurisdiction zone, and soon the news would reach the celestial region. It wouldn't take long before those who wanted him dead began to arrive. A new war was on the horizon. With that, they left the city. Leo Chuan wondered why it was so hard for Shannon to accept this reality. He then asked why Shannon had chosen to participate in that fight, since he should clearly have some understanding of his own strength. Shannon simply replied, "I needed the money." Chuan was confused, but Shannon told him to stop the car for a moment. They were parked right in front of a repair shop. Chuan asked sarcastically, "Do I look like I'm made of money?" Shannon merely pointed out that Chuan had said he would take responsibility for pulling him out of that place. Chuan turned to the mechanic and instructed him to deliver the best they had. Shannon explained that he had a friend in the isolated region named Alvin. He was from a higher rank and could have left the area long ago, but Alvin chose to stay in the Exiled Zone because of Shannon. That's why Shannon wanted to buy him a new arm. so Alvin could legally work in the jurisdiction zone. Chuan silently observed, thinking the boy had no idea how many lives would be affected. Because of his participation in the tournament, he warned Shannon that anyone who interacted with him now would become a target. If Shannon cared about his friend, it was better to stay away. But Shannon insisted he needed to explain this situation to Alvin, since he still had so many questions for him. Chuan reluctantly agreed but said he would wait in the car. Shannon walked toward the small room, thinking Alvin would be furious. Before mentioning his participation in the arena, he planned to give him the prize money to cheer him up first. He was excited to see Alvin's reaction. As he entered, he called out for Alvin to wake up and look at what he had brought. He was certain Alvin would never guess, but suddenly, he tripped over something. Looking down, he realized it was Alvin's arm. Someone inside spoke, saying they had been waiting for him for a long time. The voice added that if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed Shannon was hiding in such a filthy place. The man had a white ring around his neck. Standing with Alvin's body beneath his foot, he said it was an honor to meet the child of the divine. Shannon's heart sank. It was clear Alvin was dead. In that moment, Shannon lost control, screaming Alvin's name. The man stepped forward, claiming to be the first to discover the child of the divine. He said that by doing so, he had come closer to the gods. But Shannon was visibly breaking down. He dropped Alvin's arm to the ground, leaving the man confused by his outburst. The man stomped on Alvin's body, asking if Shannon was really that upset over this person. As Shannon runs, the man asks if he even knows who this stranger is. But Shannon is focused on shaking Alvin's body, pleading with him to wake up. The man sneers, asking if he's really crying over this piece of trash. He grabs Shannon by the collar, calling him a useless loser. Then, with a punch to the stomach, he mocks Shannon, saying it's ridiculous that someone like him could be a descendant of the divine. Shannon is thrown against the wall, collapsing to the ground. The man activates a power in his hand and lifts Shannon by the neck, starting to strangle him. He tells Shannon he's far too weak to be a child of the divine. Meanwhile, Shannon thinks he could have easily dodged this attack, but none of it matters anymore. As memories of Alvin flood his mind, he wonders why it wasn't him who died instead of his friend. Just as he's about to lose consciousness, he feels himself being hurled through a door. Disoriented and unsure of where he is, a hand suddenly lands on his shoulder. A second Shannon appears, pushing him aside and calling him a coward. Thrown into a limbo-like space, Shannon watches as the door slams shut. Back in reality, the man attacking Shannon senses something strange. In an instant, Shannon grabs the man's arm and flings him against the wall with immense force. As the man hits the ground, Shannon closes the distance with terrifying speed. The quick twist of Shannon's movements leaves the man's arm grotesquely contorted. Standing over him, Shannon glares as the man pleads for mercy. He has no idea what's happening or why the boy's aura feels entirely different now. The man still on the ground begins muttering nonsense, then lunges at Shannon, screaming for him to go to hell. But the man's hand stops just before Shannon's face. Confused, he realizes his arm isn't responding anymore. Shannon is using telekinesis. Gripping the man's neck, Shannon slams him into the wall again, causing cracks to form. Using telekinesis, Shannon hurls furniture at him. The man scrambles to protect himself, but Shannon redirects the objects, forcing him to flee. Realizing his mistake and underestimating the boy because of the black ring, the man spots the door, a potential escape. He knows telekinesis has a limited range. If he can widen the distance, Shannon won't be able to reach him. But just as he nears the exit, Leo Chuan steps into his path, asking if the man really thinks he can just walk away from a place like this. The man immediately recognizes Chuan by his golden ring and the scar on his face. Before he can act, Shannon appears behind him, using telekinesis to force the man to strangle himself with his own broken hand. Panicked, the man beats at his arm, screaming for it to stop, but the only thing he accomplishes is shattering his own bones further. Brought to his knees, the man looks helpless as Shannon delivers a swift kick, sending him to the ground. Shannon turns to Leo, who asks if he's going to attack him next, but Shannon collapses unconscious before he can respond. Watching the boy crumple, Chuan mutters that he's finally starting to resemble the savior of the prophecy. Time passes, and Shannon wakes to Chuan calling his name. He's lying on a sofa with a blanket covering him. Nearby, Chuan is standing over a burned body. When he notices Shannon is awake, he asks if he's finally ready to get up. Shannon stands and walks over to a bed where Alvin lies, pulling the blanket back to reveal his friend's lifeless body. Falling to the ground, Shannon hugs Alvin tightly, breaking down into sobs. Chuan watches in silence. Shannon eventually rises, carrying Alvin's body outside to bury him. He digs the grave, lays Alvin to rest, and covers the site with earth, placing a cross to mark the spot. For a long time, Shannon remains by the grave, saying nothing. Suddenly, he hears a voice asking how long he plans to sit there with such a sad look. Looking up, he sees Alvin smiling at him. Alvin places a comforting hand on Shannon's head before disappearing. Shannon stays there, crying a while longer. Hours later, he taps on the car window. When Chuan sees his eyes, he immediately realizes the boy has been crying. As Shannon gets in, he quietly tells Chuan that Alvin died because of his identity. Chuan doesn't offer any words of comfort. Instead, he affirms the truth. Yes, Alvin died because of Shannon's destiny. But he explains destiny isn't something one can always choose. Now isn't the time to wallow in grief. It's the time to move forward. This kind of loss will happen again, Chuan warns. If Shannon wants to prevent it, he must become stronger. With enough strength, he could change his destiny and the destinies of others. Shannon nods silently. Chuan tells him to get in the car. As Shannon opens the door, he's flooded with memories of playing in the yard with Alvin. Both of them pause, look back, and silently say goodbye. Shannon whispers, "Until next time," before stepping into the car. As they drive through the city, people stare at them. Shannon asks where they're going. Chuan responds that they're looking for a place, a spot with a good view to use as a base. And he adds, "We need new clothes." Stopping in front of the red building, Chuan declares, "This will do." At the door, guards demand their names. Leo Chuan steps forward and introduces himself. That was Black Bear Gang territory, notorious for its trafficking operations. Shannon remarked that it was dangerous, but Chuan dismissed the concern, telling him there was no need to fear such a gang. Chuan explained that while they were there, Shannon's mission was to at least learn how to defend himself. "Honestly, I thought they were going to enter peacefully, but Chuan stormed in and started beating everyone up. The entire building lit up with sparks of electricity, leaving Shannon frozen in fear at what was happening. Glass shattered everywhere and people ran out screaming, shouting that a special-grade Esper had arrived. Shannon shielded his face until Chuan appeared, telling him to hurry upstairs. The place emptied out and Shannon muttered a quiet, "All right," as he followed. Around some shipping containers, members of the Black Bear Gang were talking. The sudden appearance of a special-grade Esper in their territory meant something big was about to happen, especially since he was accompanied by a boy with a black ring. One man with white hair suggested they consult their boss about it. The scene shifted to the jurisdiction area near the fighting club. From an armored vehicle, a girl stepped out. Walking past, they stopped at a man pinned to a wall. The girl placed her hand on his head and used an ability. A golden light shone, and the standing man asked if she could see who had attacked him. She could steal memories. Clever girl. She described a man with purple hair, a golden ring, a light-based ability, and a facial scar. She added that he was carrying a boy with a black ring over his shoulder. That was enough for the man, who ordered everyone to move out. But the girl suddenly froze. As soon as she had stolen the memories, the man was torn apart before her eyes. Nearby, a white-haired man commented that the young master of the Leo family was challenging the 8 most powerful families. Someone in front of him asked who a boy with a black ring was. The white-haired man admitted he didn't know, but said they'd need to investigate. He expressed concern that Wendy's confidence might finally be taking action. Back in Shannon's nightmare, he stood in a sea of blood. He saw Alvin's arm lying on the ground, reaching out for help. Shannon began running, but the figure of a man appeared, calling him a useless piece of trash. As the man's head disconnected from his body, Shannon suddenly woke up. As Shannon sat up, Chuan asked if he was finally awake. Shannon noticed that Chuan had been watching the muted television. Chuan turned on the sound, and the news was reporting investigations into the Esper Arena attack. Looking outside, Shannon realized it was already nighttime. He asked how long he'd been asleep. Chuan only replied that Shannon should enjoy sleep while he could, because soon he wouldn't have time to sleep at all. Shannon asked if the people hunting him would find them soon. Chuan estimated 1 or 2 days, then asked if Shannon was afraid. Shannon grew pensive. Living in the Exiled Zone meant he had never expected a long life. Just making it to the next day had always been enough. In that harsh environment, survival required an insatiable desire to keep living. And yet, even in such a bleak place, there had been something beautiful, small moments of goodness that made life worth continuing. Chuan threw the TV remote at Shannon's head, snapping him out of his thoughts. "What are you brooding about now?" he asked. Shannon replied that he knew Chuan was strong, but what would they do if a large group came after them? He felt he'd only get in the way. Chuan smirked and asked when he had ever said they were alone. Opening a chat on his device, he revealed that he had already sent their location to 4 individuals. Chuan admitted he was curious to see what those 4 would do. Would they honor the promise made 18 years ago and protect Shannon? Or would they side with the Lin family? Shannon, confused, asked what he meant. Weren't these people supposed to be allies? Chuan explained that in the past, alongside Miss Wu Yu, there had been 6 loyal families. The Su, Zhu, He, Han, and Patty families. Miss Wu Yu believed the rings exacerbated humanity's darker tendencies. She wanted to create a society where those with powers and those without could live in harmony. The scene shifted to a pink-haired girl walking. Others questioned her about breaking down the wall. They didn't want to share their land with the inferior ones. Someone beside her reminded them this was the council chamber, not a place for complaints. The woman stood before a table. It seems the translator mixed up Miss Wu Yu and Lady Wendy. They might be the same person. A man from the Lin family accused the others of complaining. He insisted that wasn't what was happening. Ultimately, the Lin family and others started a war. Miss Wu Yu, sensing an imminent crisis, summoned the heads of every family. It was the first time anyone had seen Shannon, just a baby in her arms. Her ring shone with 3 rainbow bands. She admitted her request was selfish and dangerous, but she begged them not to forget their mission. If they allowed the Espers to continue unchecked, the world would eventually be destroyed. In 18 years, oppression and disregard for human life would only worsen. The lives of those within and outside the walls would be like separate worlds. She warned that this would be the result of letting Espers use their powers without limits. Miss Wu Yu gave them a choice: to pass down a promise to their descendants to protect this child when the war resumed. The boy would fall into a deep sleep, she assured them. But the moment he awoke, he would be the one chosen to restore order to society. Where they lost the initial battle, the Espers' control over those with weaker powers only grew stronger. Miss Wu Yu was captured by the Lin family. A revolution erupted in the Celestial City, and the ranking of the 8 major families was reshuffled. The Lin family segregated all the families that had supported Wu Yu. For the next 18 years, her supporters pretended not to know each other, avoiding all contact to keep the Lin family from discovering their intentions. Now, with so much time passed, no one knew who would still be loyal and who would show up to honor the agreement. Chuan, however, was confident. He said it didn't matter how many came, he could handle everything alone. Suddenly, Shannon said he must be a disappointment. Chuan agreed, saying he had been curious to see the child of prophecy. But in the end, Shannon was too ordinary, a real disappointment. Even so, Chuan admitted he didn't regret coming. Unexpectedly, Shannon thanked him. He mentioned that Chuan must be hungry and offered to fetch something for them to eat. Shannon opened the warehouse door and immediately collapsed to the ground. He begged his trembling body to stop. Hearing that his mother believed he was destined to restore order to society was too much to process. He remembered fleeing through the alleyways, nearly having his organs stolen while escaping on a stretcher, fighting in the arena, watching bodies being hauled away. To his mother, he could only think, "I'm not the child who will save the world." In that moment, he felt incapable of saving even himself. But then, recalling Alvin's death, Shannon refused to accept this. He didn't know how many Espers were coming, but he didn't have time to hesitate. Somehow, he would have to find a way to win. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Shannon jumped to the side as a blazing halberd came straight at him. Chuan commented that Xena must have drawn them out after all. Shannon kept dodging, but he noticed the flames were tracking him, which didn't make sense. It might have been some kind of magic that could sense his presence. The fireball suddenly split into 2, blowing apart the gondola he had been using for cover. Realizing he needed to find Chuan, Shannon stopped. Instead, he decided he needed to become someone who didn't rely on others. He grabbed the burning gondola and slammed it onto the ground, trying to smother the flames. "I'm tired of running," he declared. Of course, the flames merely spread, now surging toward him from above. He paused for a moment, muttering that he was tired of it all. If the flames were tracking his movements, he needed to erase his presence first. After locating the source of the fire, he would capture whoever was controlling it. He raised his head and challenged, "Come at me," and come at him it did. In that moment, Shannon agreed with Alvin. Hiding wasn't the path to victory. The flames rushed toward him and the building exploded. The fire returned to a girl standing at a distance. She wondered aloud if his presence had disappeared. That's when she felt something behind her. Shannon, scorched and battered, had tracked her down. Face to face with his opponent, he was visibly burned and shaken, unsure of what to do next. She approached him, declaring that he had passed. A fiery woman with blue hair, striking contrast. Meanwhile, Chuan was standing off to the side, grinning like a maniac. Shannon, confused by this talk of passing, struggled to remain standing. Despite being recognized, he refused to collapse in front of her. Chuan suddenly appeared, grabbed him by the collar, and as Shannon tried to resist, he was struck on the back of the neck. He passed out immediately, and Chuan told the woman they needed to talk. Shannon lay unconscious on a sofa. The woman asked Chuan what was so special about Shannon's senses. At best, she noted the boy had slightly enhanced reflexes. As the son of Miss Wu Yu, she had expected an incredible ability, but with one as mediocre as his, she suggested everyone might as well go home. Chuan thought to himself that her sharp tongue was as annoying as ever, but aloud he said that considering how Shannon handled the ambush, he didn't think the boy had done too poorly. Shannon had managed to erase his presence in the middle of an explosion and locate her remarkably quickly. She dismissed his defense, saying it was only possible because she had gone easy on him. She asked if something significant had happened, wondering why Chuan valued the boy so highly. Chuan recalled Shannon's earlier attack on an opponent. He admitted something interesting had occurred, but downplayed it. This left the woman confused. She remarked that it had been 16 years since they last met. She seemed to have trained hard in the meantime, as indicated by the pendant she wore, a survival token from a close call. She teased Chuan about the scar across his face, saying he wasn't one to talk about appearances either. The two commented on their anticipation for the next person to arrive. Chuan hoped it would be someone with a less cutting tongue. The scene shifted to the Celestial City, to the Council of the 8 Families. Some guys nearby commented that the place hadn't been opened in a long time, so something big must be happening. One of them said he missed the days of Miss Wu Yu, when this place hosted the presence of the strongest families. Now it was run by a bunch of useless weirdos. Another warned him to be careful with such talks, saying that ghosts have ears in the walls. These ghosts were the agents of the 8 families tasked with finding Wu Yu's descendant. A man wrapped in bandages said he'd like to cut out the first guy's tongue and asked his companion if he didn't agree. The companion, annoyed, replied that it was tiring but didn't know where to start. The bandaged man walked across the hall, saying it was better to settle things quickly. Meanwhile, Shannon was already exposed with Leo Chuan, and everyone knew what he looked like. The group announced that as everyone was aware, Leo Chuan had caused chaos recently. The issue was that in terms of raw power, Leo Chuan was close to the divine rank, making him difficult to challenge. One of them suggested it might be the perfect time to test some hybrids. Another sinisterly mentioned being eager to taste the flesh of a divine child. However, one pointed out that the problem wasn't just Leo Chuan. Apparently, a girl had joined him. The leader dismissed the concern, saying that if she interfered, they'd simply kill her. Someone else asked about the other 3 families loyal to Wu Yu. The leader explained that the master swordsman of the Su family had disappeared 10 years ago, leaving no heirs. Han Shu, the only known relative of the Su family, was bedridden and lacked exceptional talent, making him incapable of fighting. Zhou Exi, who had fought in the Zhao family battle, had been sent to a monastery and severed ties with his family, though he remained a potential threat. They decided to send a warning to the Zhao family. If they interfered with Leo Chuan, they would be annihilated. The group dispersed. One of them noticed a bird flying overhead. The bird flew to an oriental-style city, landing by a waterfall where Zhao Exi was meditating. The bird delivered a message directly into his ear. Zhao Exi now knew the Leo and P families had begun to act. Rising to his feet, he declared that he would handle this alone. However, in the water nearby, one of the ghosts was silently listening to everything. The scene shifted to the Zhao family mansion. The place was completely deserted, and one of the ghosts seemed to materialize in the middle of it. Inside a hospital room in the mansion lay Han Shu, bedridden. Green claws began to form around him. Back at the building where Chuan and Shannon were, Chuan was looking out the window. Shannon asked if there were any enemies nearby. Chuan laughed, saying they were far from that. He wondered aloud when the Exile Zone residents had become so bold. It was ridiculous that they were attacking with such a small number. Down below, a man with a megaphone called for them to come down and talk. Chuan recognized him as Qin Tian, or as they used to call him, the Qin Tian. Chuan leaned out and told Qin Tian he wasn't interested in talking, but Qin Tian clarified that he wanted to speak with the pink-haired boy, the one with the black ring. Outside the room, Chuan told Shannon to calm down despite being a disappointment. Meanwhile, Chuan expressed his own excitement, admitting he had hoped for a direct attack so he could fight back properly. Inside the room, Qin Tian greeted Shannon, saying he hadn't expected to meet him again so soon. He had been sure the building takeover was Shannon's doing. Qin Tian didn't expect an apology from Chuan, but he pressed Shannon for why the Espers were hunting him. Shannon replied that even if he explained, no one would believe him. While this conversation took place, others outside were grumbling about being hungry. After a while, Qin Tian summed up the situation. Shannon was the son of Wu Yu, every Esper in the Celestial City was after him, and his only help came from 2 outsiders. Chuan confirmed this and asked if Qin Tian knew anything about Shannon's mother. Qin Tian explained that in both the Celestial City and here, Wu Yu's name was known by all. However, it was a banned word that no one was allowed to utter under any circumstances. Chuan quipped, "What is she? Voldemort?" Qin Tian asked if Chuan wasn't afraid he'd reveal their location to everyone. Shannon spoke up, saying he trusted Qin Tian. Though Qin Tian seemed carefree, Shannon believed his instincts were sharp. Qin Tian smiled, noting how much Shannon had changed in just a few days. As a gesture of gratitude, Qin Tian offered some information about Wu Yu. 20 years ago, he had worked on a secret construction project in the jurisdiction area. The location and purpose of the site were top secret, and all workers were blindfolded until they arrived. Over time, Qin Tian realized it was a prison, but not just any prison. It was built to contain a single individual. A man with a golden ring had appeared during the project, urging them to complete it quickly. He had spoken of the divine prison, and everyone had simply acknowledged his orders. Qin Tian was certain this prison was where Wu Yu had been confined, though he admitted it was only speculation. After all, no one could even confirm if she was still alive. The scene shifts to the Su family estate. The ghost wanders through the house, sensing nothing. He checks each room, concluding it's better to leave. But then he feels a faint energy coming from a specific room. Entering, he sees a boy hooked up to a machine and remarks that he always believed the Su family had no descendants. As he begins to question the boy's identity, the boy opens his eyes. The boy's system begins analyzing the unknown figure. The ghost comments that even he didn't know about this boy's existence and demands to know his connection to the Su family. The boy doesn't respond, prompting the ghost to repeat himself and accuse him of being deaf. Then the system hits 100%. The ghost watches as the boy utters Shen Yang. Startled, the ghost asks how the boy knows his name. Moving behind him, he orders the boy to answer. Instead, the boy extends his arm, emitting a purple light, and the ghost disintegrates into smoke. The boy frees himself from the machine while, across the room, the ghost-mangled form begins to reform. Recognizing the boy's palm ability as something Liu Xingguang used to wield, the ghost is bewildered. Liu Xingguang was supposed to be dead, so why did a Su family descendant possess his technique? Filled with questions, the ghost knows he must warn the others to be cautious, but a strange purple mist starts to surround him. Trembling, the ghost suddenly finds the boy behind him again. As the ghost pleads for mercy, the boy casually finishes him off with a blast. The ghost is completely disintegrated. Elsewhere, Zhao stands calmly as a ghost emerges from the water to attack him. The ghost hurls an attack demanding Zhao die. Zhao remains unbothered, raising a hand to stop the watery blow. He transforms the attack into a flock of birds, dissipating the assault entirely. Zhao warns the ghost to regret coming here. The ghost, confused, cannot comprehend how his attack was neutralized so easily. Zhao tosses his sword into the air, approaches, and delivers a series of strikes to the ghost. The ghost tries to teleport away, but Zhao relentlessly pursues him. Even as the ghost is thrown far back, Zhao continues his assault. As the ghost falls, Zhao leaps into the air, grabs his sword, and prepares to finish the fight. Panicking, the ghost asks what ability Zhao is using. Zhao simply replies that he doesn't need abilities to defeat weaklings. The scene shifts to a large Buddha statue. A group of monks kneels before it, praying. A message echoes. A pure heart is like still water. It reflects everything without distortion. But a heart consumed by desires is like turbulent water, unable to reflect the true beauty of reality. Back with Zhao, he has clearly finished off the ghost, painting the water red. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the clawed ghost is holding a boy aloft. He grips the boy by the arms, confirming the information was accurate. Han Shu was merely a powerless body. One of the ghost's claws moves toward Han Shu's neck to remove his ring. As the ghost connects his claws to the boy's arm and begins absorbing blood, he celebrates, remarking how nostalgic the heart of a special-grade individual feels. But suddenly, something falls to the ground behind him. Turning around, he sees apples rolling across the floor and a girl demanding he let go of her brother. The ghost coldly asks what she'll do if he doesn't. Without hesitation, the girl grabs two of his claws and flings him across the room. She runs to check on her brother, but one of the claws pierces her shoulder, slamming her into the wall. The ghost mocks her for being careless, picks up Han Shu, and starts to run. She tries to chase him, but as she reaches the exit, she finds a large group of people waiting for her. It's her mother, who calmly asks the ghost why he didn't warn them he was coming. They could have prepared a proper reception. Why was he making things so difficult? The ghost sneers, telling her to drop the act. He accuses them all of being Wu Yu's lackeys and declares he knows about the Leo family's movements. He warns that anyone who values their life should stay out of this. Holding on to Han Shu, he says he will take Wu Yu's descendant no matter what. The mother replies that she doesn't care about any descendant but demands he let go of her son. The ghost dismisses her, saying Han Shu is just a lifeless body. He throws Han Shu into the air, taunting them to catch him if they want him back. The sister panics and the mother shouts for Yu Lai. In a flash, Yu Li disappears from the ground and leaps into the air to grab Han Shu. The ghost takes advantage of the distraction to vanish. The mother tells them not to bother chasing him, it's impossible, and orders them to take Han Shu back to the hospital. Approaching Yu Li, they insist her wounds need treatment. Yu Lai, however, demands to know if her mother truly meant what she said about not caring for the descendants anymore. She presses, asking if their family will abandon everyone and do nothing in this war. She yells that her brother once said Esper's abilities were meant to make the world a better place. Yet here was someone who had hurt her brother, and her mother was still acting polite. The mother remains silent. Yu Li's frustration is palpable. From the shadows, another voice tells them they should hurry up and leave. The girl says she understands. She declares she will finish what her brother started. Her mother looks at the glass and tells her she made two mistakes during the fight. First, she lost focus on her opponent before ensuring he was dead, which got her hurt. Second, when someone needed saving, she hesitated instead of acting immediately. The girl asks if that even matters. Her mother simply replies that the answer to what she wants to do is no. The scene shifts back to the planning base. Leo Chuan is asking Qin Tian for more information about the Divine Cage. Qin Tian describes it as a prison with pillars surrounding a central sleeping chamber. Beneath it was a pool of water that resembled lava with a terrible stench. Meanwhile, Shannon, or Shan Yu, as he's now being called again, is sitting nearby looking battered. He's questioning everything Qin Tian has been through when a voice asks him what he thinks he can do alone. Suddenly, his mother appears before him, demanding he hand over his body. Shan Yu quickly realizes this isn't his mother. The figure admits she isn't and transforms into the other version of him, declaring she is the real Shan Yu. She fires at him, causing Shan Yu to collapse. Qin Tian steps outside, announcing that the boy has fainted. Xena enters and starts shaking Shan Yu's head. It seems they're trying to wake him up, but it's clear something dark is stirring inside. Back in Shan Yu's dream world, the other figure grips his arm, demanding he relinquish his body. Shan Yu feels an overwhelming, terrifying power and finds himself paralyzed. The figure reminds him it was Shan Yu who summoned him. When Alvin was brutally killed, Shan Yu stood there, powerless, and this darker version of himself took his place. Only this version can win the coming war. If Shan Yu hands over his body, he promises he won't be disappointed. Shan Yu struggles to speak, unable to move in the presence of this force. The figure insists he just needs to say he'll surrender. Suddenly, a noise at the door interrupts them. The figure sighs, annoyed by the constant interruptions. Shan Yu starts waking up, jolted by Leo's declaration that electricity always works. Xena was about to test for fire next. Shan Yu lets out a scream, hearing the figure promise they'll meet again soon. Grabbing Leo's arm, he tries to stand. Leo, puzzled, asks what's wrong. Shan Yu immediately requests to fight. Leo thinks the shock may have fried the boy's brain, but Shannon assures him everything is fine. Shan Yu insists he needs to awaken his Esper powers, and fighting is the only way to do it. The two stand face to face, staring each other down. Leo laughs, calling the boy delusional. Xena tells Leo to use minimal energy, but to show Shan Yu the harsh reality of this world. Leo responds that he won't need to use any energy or even sweat, as Shan Yu is far too weak. Tian suggests a perfect place for their fight, and the scene shifts to a port area. Xena, dressed stylishly, warns Shan Yu to be careful not to die. Shan Yu replies that only by facing death can he achieve what he needs. Observing, Xena feels she has chosen the right side. The fight begins. The two square off, and Shan Yu tries to anticipate Leo's movements. He knows he must stay calm to clearly see Leo's attacks. Leo smirks, stating he'll turn the area into a battlefield. Suddenly, an orb forms around them, closing them off. Xena attempts to punch her way in, but is thrown back by the orb's force. Inside, Shan Yu stands frozen, staring at Leo. Leo tells him to keep his eyes wide open because he's about to witness what a true Esper can do. Shan Yu shivers, feeling something pass by him. Before he can process it, a hand strikes his face, sending him flying. Shan Yu hits the ground stunned. He hadn't even seen what happened, realizing it had been just one hand. Leo laughs, telling him to get up. It was only the warm-up. Outside, Xena continues trying to break in. Tian comments that he has seen many Espers, but Leo Chuan is on another level. Xena agrees, noting that Leo is said to be the closest person to achieving the divine tier the world has ever seen. 16 years earlier, during the HESP evaluation, the atmosphere was charged with electricity. Children murmured about the overwhelming pressure emanating from within. It was Leo Chuan's Esper analysis. The divine rank symbol began to appear, and everyone thought he would achieve it. But in the end, his results showed a gold rank. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that another divine rank individual hadn't appeared. Still, they whispered to keep quiet because Leo Chuan was leaving. Even at 10 years old, Leo Chuan looked the same, donning his iconic style. The boy hadn't changed a bit. The crowd erupted in applause, clearly excited. On that day, Xena had been deeply impressed. Then it was her turn. She swore she wouldn't lose to Leo Chuan. Back in the present, Tian asked if Leo was truly a prodigy. If he was that strong, Shenhuan wouldn't last a second against him. Xena, however, commented that wasn't the main issue. The real concern was that enemies could appear at any moment in their current position. They needed to finish things quickly before the situation escalated. Tian assured them he'd keep an eye on the rear and alert them if anything happened. Xena, skeptical, asked why he was helping them. Tian replied that the influx of Espers into the Exiled Zone proved Shan Yu was significant to the world. Perhaps he even had the potential to change everything. Many people with black rings, himself included, hoped to see the Exiled Zone transformed. Still, he admitted it was a bit crazy to place all their hopes on a single child. Lying on the ground, Shan Yu silently thanked God that Leo Chuan wasn't his enemy. In his mind, the other voice continued, urging him to give up his body and let it take over. The shadowy version of himself appeared again, ready to torment him further. The shadow mocked Shan Yu, claiming it knew his deepest thoughts. Surely he was tired of being powerless, of being a nobody. He wanted to be as strong as Leo Chuan. If he begged, the shadow promised to grant him all the power he desired. It added that Shan Yu should accept quickly, as he already knew what would happen if the Espers capture him, a fate worse than death. He'd be imprisoned, just like his mother. Wrapping his arms around Shan Yu, the shadow whispered that he should let go of himself and surrender. It promised to destroy every last Esper. This talk of annihilating all Espers intrigued Shan Yu, but he pushed back, declaring that this shadow wasn't him and reminding it that he knew what had been said. The scene cut to a group of people gathered around a bonfire. They appeared to be from a religious faction but were armed with heavy weaponry. Nearby, Alvin sat on a crate, observing with Shan Yu beside him. One of the men approached and offered them food, telling them not to worry. They could eat as much as they wanted. When they joined the faction in the future, they'd repay the kindness. Alvin, overjoyed, thanked him. Shan Yu hesitated, asking if they should stay there. Alvin firmly said no. Shan Yu asked why, as the people seemed friendly. Alvin explained that the screams outside this place never stopped. While some feasted, others were left outside, pleading for entry. These people, Alvin said, are worse than the ones out there. If we stay, we'll end up just like them. That's worse than dying. Shan Yu commented that the world was a mess because of the Espers. Alvin jokingly called him a floating bread and reminded him that he was also an amazing Esper. Looking up at the sky, Alvin wondered aloud if a parallel world existed, one without Espers. Would there still be bad people there? He mused. If only he had lived long enough, he might have found out the unfortunate truth. He dreamed of a place where not only the powerful had rights. Alvin stole a piece of bread from Shan Yu, telling him to hurry up and eat. Shan Yu protested, saying he was saving it for later. Alvin urged him to finish it quickly so they could return to the real world. Back in the present, Shan Yu told the shadow he wouldn't let it take his body. The interaction shattered, leaving Leo wondering what was happening to the boy on the ground. Shan Yu stood up, calling out to Leo and declaring it wasn't over yet. Leo grinned, excited that things were finally getting interesting. The scene shifted to the jurisdiction area. People remarked that the Exiled Zone was becoming like the old days again. A group of suspicious individuals was preparing to cause chaos in the city. The door began to open slowly, with people inside complaining about how long it was taking. Their mission was to intercept 2 specific people. Nearby guards were confused, noting that they'd never heard of prisoners with black rings coming from this place. One guard was about to speak when a girl suddenly disappeared, reappearing with a blade at his throat. She taunted him, asking if he thought she didn't know where he was looking. Activating something in her eye, the guard's visor began to glow before exploding in his face. Another guard raised his weapon, but she dared him to try. His gun malfunctioned as she calmly taunted him. Just then, someone called out, telling her that was enough. A blonde man appeared, reminding her that their mission was to stop a special rank individual from reaching the Exiled Zone. Another man, his face wrapped in bandages, remarked that they were the first line of defense. The group left to complete their task, while others returned to their base. Back in the city, a train passed through the jurisdiction area. Joe Exie was leaping between rooftops, heading somewhere with precision. Inside the base, a scientist was busy working. Joe Exie stops beneath a towering structure and begins unsheathing his sword. Nearby, a man crouches on the ground, muttering that only an idiot would face a special-grade individual head-on. His plan was simple: delay Joe Exie just enough to avoid getting into serious trouble. The man draws a figure on the ground surrounded by intricate symbols and declares that everything is ready. Suddenly, the symbols glow and the building seems to dissolve into chaos. Joe Exie immediately senses something emanating from the ground beneath him. Elsewhere in the scientist's lab, everything begins to shake. One of the scientists asks if it's an earthquake, but another runs past, shouting that it's impossible. Something else is happening. The building appears to be moving. Throughout the city, structures shift, groaning and grinding against each other as they come alive. Joe Exie looks around searching for a path, but it's clear he's trapped. The buildings close in on him, and he realizes he might have walked into a trap. Kneeling briefly on the ground, Joe Exie mutters that he doesn't have time for games. Then he leaps, scaling one of the buildings with impressive agility. The boy who drew the symbols slashes at the air, causing one of the buildings to shift violently. Joe Exie narrowly avoids being crushed, sliding back down to find another route. But no matter where he moves, buildings keep slamming into his path. It's as if he's fighting against the entire city. Frustrated and increasingly impatient, Joe Exie realizes he's back to square one, no closer to an escape. Meanwhile, in the skies above, another figure is flying, seemingly struggling to stay airborne. The system alerts him that his leg is low on energy. It's none other than the Su family descendant. Below him, Xena uses her magic and waves playfully, calling out for him to come down. With a smirk, she mockingly refers to him as Little Robot. Back in the dome, Xena thanks someone over her communicator for the intel that advises them to find a safe place to hide. She warns that if they return, they'll get dragged into the escalating conflict. Ending the call, she mutters how much she hates looking up to see people, obviously referring to her airborne enemies. Moments later, the rest of the group arrives, all aiming to capture Shan Yu. Xena cracks her knuckles and smirks, asking aloud who will be the first to die. She then says maybe they all want to come at once, especially since she doesn't care about that. The group comments that she's pretty mouthy, while Xena is thinking that all she has to do is endure and wait for Shan Yu's Esper abilities to activate. Remember, Shan Yu is Shannon, right guys? She knows he'll probably awaken some kind of telekinesis, just like his mother. She knows exactly what kind of weakness these Espers have, and when the real fight begins, it'll be her and Leo against everyone. The group mentions that it's been a while since they've come to this area, and it even feels a bit nostalgic. Xenia observes that they are all black rings. Her father was right. Then we see a flashback from 14 years ago. She seems to be coming out of a training session with 98 victories and 2 losses. That's when she notices the lights are still on. She calls for her father and tells him to come in. While she's going to the fridge to grab some water, her father says she needs to balance her daytime and nighttime training better. She responds that the one who should go to bed early is her dad because he's already old and she doesn't want to lose him like that. He laughs and says his daughter really has a sharp tongue. She then takes a look at the papers on the table. One of them is about the Leo family. She lowers her gaze and asks where they could have hidden Miss Wu Yu. Her father replies that's the question he also wants to know the answer to. There they are sitting together, sharing a warm cup of tea. It was the price they paid for Miss Yu's freedom. Her father then tells her to take a look at the insignia on the vehicles. She recognizes that they are trucks from Celestial City, but they're in the frozen zones. Her father confirms and says all of them were intercepted in the frozen zones. Strangely, 8 families are currently capturing many black rings from that region. In just the past 2 weeks, over 1,000 have been captured. Xenia is shocked and wants to know what they're planning to do with so many children. Her father explains that he's considering all the possibilities. The problem is that they all lead to a frightening conclusion. These children are being trained to wipe out her generation. Back to the fight scene, the blonde guy says it's rude to keep ignoring the targets like that. His friend kicks the leader in the back, saying it's him who came in and started chatting away. But he says it's fine, he'll handle it. However, the pink-haired girl says she can't let Yao Guang enter the fight like that. She couldn't allow a beautiful woman to meet such a tragic end. With that, she jumps in front of Xena. She warns that on the other hand, she's different. She would make sure Xena died in a wonderful way. Xena just says she's eager to see what she's capable of. A fight between women. From above, the guys comment that they're sure Shan Yu must be inside that circle. But how would they get in? The leader says to wait for Xena to crush Xena, and soon they'll come to save her. When the barrier goes down, the friend is to face Shan Yu, while he will face Leo Chuan. He's excited to see who are the strongest men in the divine tier, those inside that globe, or the ones who consume the divine tier. Inside the dome, Shan Yu is standing still. He felt it was close. That copy of him almost took control of his body. But at the same time, it was because of that copy that he's now able to see everything clearly. Leo Chuan asks what's with the crazy look on his face. Our guy decides to give his other version a name, Little Black. Suddenly, he slaps his own face, then slaps himself again. Leo is confused, watching what he's doing. Apparently, it's his clone who didn't like the name. The crazy guy suddenly says to bring it on because now he'll be able to win. But before he can say anything else, he just vanishes. This time, however, Shan Yu manages to dodge. He knows something is different because it's impossible for him to do this with just his base strength. Now, seeing the patterns, everything is changing. He says Little Black is right. He's just an ant in this world. But the clone needs to remember that if it weren't for the 18 years of suffering he endured, the clone wouldn't exist either. That's why he's certain the original is much better at surviving. So that cursed clone better not appear out of nowhere, doubting his existence. Especially since this was the first time someone other than Alvin was on his side. And that's why, with the kick to the chest, he's proving that everything happening is thanks to him, not the clone. Our guy gets thrown far, but at least he withstands it. He thinks that, at the very least, he'll withstand anything Leo Chuan does. Leo comments that his eyes look strange. But Chumo ignores it and tells him to stand back and watch. He'll show what true growth looks like. He lands a punch on Leo, who creates a shield to defend himself. But then he goes around to the back and almost lands a kick. Leo dodges, but he's already behind him again. He goes for an arm lock around his neck, but the guy grabs him. He grabs him by the shoulder and slams him into the ground. The guy ends up immobilized with 50 chains. Leo says he's sure Shan Yu wouldn't have been able to dodge if his Esper ability wasn't activated. It seems like he's starting to see the future. From outside, Xena tells Xena she wants to ask her a quick question before they begin. Xena, however, says she's not interested. Xena responds that she hasn't even heard the question yet. Then Xena says they received 2 missions. One was to capture the divine tier known as Shan Yu, and the other was to kill the girl known as Pai Xena. She's curious why the 8 major families want to eliminate an Esper, especially since Xena wasn't a special tier Esper, but just a silver ring. Why do those families harbor such hatred toward her? Was there something special about her? Xena doesn't take kindly to this. She asks what Xiamai means by just a mere silver ring. Xiamai apologizes, saying she shouldn't have said that. But out of nowhere, flames shoot into the sky. They pass by the girl, who starts sweating. She looks back and tells Xenia she had to ruin the mood. Xenia is confused, especially since she aimed the attack right at her head but missed. Xiamai then lunges forward, saying it's time to end this. Xenia simply thinks she wants to see what these people are capable of as well. The woman advances, dodging attacks, saying Xenia's aim needs a lot of improvement. Xenia observes and blocks the first punch, but something seems to activate on Xiamai's arm. The fight begins in earnest. Xenia manages to grab Xiamai's arm, pulls her to the side, and tries to punch her, but Xiamai dodges. Xiamai attempts a kick, but Xenia blocks it with her forearm. However, the girl is flexible and ducks low, almost landing a kick herself, but has to retreat. A fireball comes from behind and she dodges again. Out of nowhere, Xiamai grabs Xenia by the shoulder, saying she understands why Xenia might feel like an inferior being. Xenia goes for another attack, but Xiamai dodges again. Suddenly, someone pulls out a gun. Xenia notices and raises a fire barrier, saying she's not a fan of people who attack from behind, especially those in the audience. The leader tells Yao Guang that his little trick was exposed. Yao Guang just relaxes and drops the weapon. Meanwhile, Xiamai continues dodging the flames, getting closer to Xenia, and comments that she's sure there's an unforgettable story behind Xenia's scar. She places her hand on Xenia's face, saying she wants to hear about it. But suddenly, she nearly gets hit by a flame. Xiamai manages to retreat, wondering where Xenia is. Xenia then appears behind her, asking for her last words. Xenia apologizes to Xiang Yu, saying she wanted to buy time but now has to end this quickly. This woman had made her angry. She launches an attack and Xiamai realizes she can't dodge this one. An explosion fills the port with smoke. When it clears, Xenia asks how Xiamai feels about being defeated by just a mere silver ring. Xiamai is battered but starts laughing like a maniac, saying that's exactly what she wanted, a thrill she hadn't felt in years. She admits that Xena is one of the strongest silver rings she's ever met. Xena stays silent. The lunatic continues smiling. From the top of the containers, a kid is calling for his sister. Yo Guang, however, says to relax. Xena enjoys putting on these shows. The leader tells the kid to chill. He's certain Xena is already dead. We cut to a control room filled with cameras. They had lost vision from one of them and someone suggests checking what's going on. They couldn't let this child, a successful mutation, be lost like this. Then we see guards approaching his cell and knocking on the glass. The boy doesn't respond, so they open the glass and enter the room. One of the guards calls out to him and places a hand on his shoulder. Out of nowhere, the boy leaps at his neck. Another guard is thrown aside while a third tries to aim. The boy seems like the child of Mike Tyson with my own wild imagination. He even demands a card and the guard agrees to hand it over. The boy stretches his hand, but 2 gunshots are heard. We then see a body being dragged away, 2 more being carried, a boy trying to escape while being shot, and yet another body being taken away. So many bodies being carried, where are we even going? The boy is already bagged up. One of the men comments on how this was supposed to be a successful experiment. The old man next to him says to burn it immediately. The man activates the incinerator, lamenting how, after hundreds of failures, the first success was going to be discarded like this. The old man, however, asks if he knows how long the incinerator has been running at level 2. It had been burning day and night for over a decade. The people in this place had gone insane. Killing meant nothing to them anymore. Moreover, the Black Rings were naive to believe that gaining power would change their fate. They thought that by gaining these powers, they'd be able to escape this place and be free. But the truth is, a black ring will always be a black ring, and with that, the body is cremated. Back to the fight scene, Xena approaches and tells Xena to use that precious ability of hers and try something. However, what she was noticing was a series of scars on Xena. Xena asks who said she wasn't already using her ability. That's when Xena feels something strange. A purple shadow touches her shoulder, and she feels an attack on her arm and leg. Instantly, a butterfly curse begins to consume her body. Xena falls to the ground as some flowers start growing from her. Xena slowly stands up, approaches, and tells Xena that now it's her turn to kneel. Poor Xena is coughing up blood. That's when Xena starts to remember. During the fight, Xena had been touching parts of her body. Xena then asks if Xena's ability is to make the limbs she touches go numb. Xena replies no. If that's all she could do, she wouldn't be in the business of taking Xena's life. She then says she'll reveal her ability. Meanwhile, Yao Guang thinks this power is unique to Xena. Xena reveals that her ability is to make others age rapidly. Whoa, but wait, didn't she say she'd let her die beautifully? Yao Guang thinks to himself that this is a lethal ability. We then see a flashback. He remembers his hair being cut, standing face to face with Xena when they were younger. They were being sprayed with cold water. The guy with the hose tells Xena that the marks on her body are disgusting and look like an infection. Yao Guang glances at her. Apparently, she was born with those marks. She looks back, gives him a death stare, and runs off. Later, they're all gathered in an auditorium where a woman on TV is welcoming them to the Advanced Birth Project. This place, she says, is where black rings can change their fate. The mutations and experiments they'll go through will reveal the people they're meant to be. This is their one and only chance to escape this mediocre life. Those who successfully mutate will qualify to enter Celestial City. Back in the room, some boys comment that this sounds like brainwashing. But on TV, everyone looks happy. And Tao Qianlang seems happier than anyone else. Yao Guang glances sideways and tries to remember the girl's name. That was the first day he met Xia. Later in the cafeteria, someone places a hand on a boy's shoulder. It's Xia already asking why he's staring at her. She warns him that if he keeps looking at her like she's a monster, next time she'll gouge his eyes out. Another boy intervenes and stops her attack. But Xia gets hit with a taser in the neck. A guard warns them that the experiments start in an hour, so they better save their energy. It's amazing they still have the motivation to fight after everything that happened. Yao Guang, sitting on the ground, asks Xia if she can get up. But as soon as he touches her shoulder, she slaps his hand away and tells him not to touch her. She stands up and runs off. Shen Lang remarks that based on her appearance and reaction, she must belong to the Silver Fox faction. The scene shifts to their first experiments. They're injecting something into people's arms and calling for the next subject. Each person is directed to a room and told to respond when their number is called. When Yao Guang sees Xia again, he tells her he only looked at her because he thought she was strong and apologizes for touching her without permission. She just stares at him and tells him to survive. He glances back and says they both need to make it through this mutation process. Later, a guard yawns and his friend tells him he better wake up because tonight's going to be busy. At 1:25 a.m., screams begin echoing through the corridor. Some children are banging on the glass, others are going insane. In one room, Xia is writhing on the ground. In another cell, everything is being consumed by a black energy. It's clear the children are losing their minds as they awaken their new powers. One guard even asks for the camera audio to be turned off because the screaming children are making his ears bleed. Time passes. In one cell, Qian Lang is yelling for Yao Guang, asking if he's dead. Poor Yao Guang is drenched in sweat, lying on the bed. When he finally opens his eyes, there's a golden glow. But it fades quickly. He gets up while Shannon Lang says he'd be pathetic if he had died. Yo Guang shouts back that he's alive and warns Tian Lang that if he keeps pushing, maybe he'll die. He then goes to the door and Tian Lang laughs. Yo Guang pounds on the glass and asks if Xena is alive. Poor Xena is stretched out on the ground, but then her thumb twitches and the boy thanks her. He hears someone approaching and looks to the side. Some guards are coming. They announce that this sector has exceeded expectations. Numbers 310, 312, and 313 have survived. In most of the other sectors, no one survived. They then go to Xena's room. Apparently, she was the first girl to survive this season. Another guard is just staring at her. He tells his colleague to leave, saying he won't take long. But the other guard warns him not to do anything as they don't know what ability she gained. The first guard orders him not to argue and to just wait outside. The scene shifts. Shan Lang is manipulating some black flames. But as he looks around, he quickly realizes they survived, but nothing had changed. Everything they had been promised was a lie. We then see the guard leaving CMA's room, adjusting his pants. We all know what happened, but his friend asks him what happened to his face and neck. That's when he notices a pink substance crawling up his neck and hand. He opens his shirt and sees it spreading all over his body. He begins trembling. Meanwhile, his friend calls for help from Sector B313. The scumbag collapses to the floor, lifeless. Xena stands there just staring at him. Back in the present, Xena says that once she touches Xenia's heart, it will stop beating. She bids farewell to Pag Xenia. Damn, she actually touched her, and I thought we were going to get some heroic moment here, but maybe not. Elsewhere, Han Li, the sister of a Han family member, is holding a rock. She throws it at a camera, or rather, at a pillar that nearly collapses entirely. But then the camera turns toward her face. It asks her to enter the 6-digit garage access code, but she keeps entering the wrong password. She gives up, punches the door twice, and pulls the cable. The problem is her shoulder still hurts a lot from that day. But now she doesn't have time to worry about that. She walks looking for a car, but is being watched by a camera. In one of the rooms, a woman from the Han family is freaking out, saying the young miss has lost her mind. She's already stolen a phone and is about to steal a car. Apparently, she's heading for the Exile Zone. She asks her mother if that isn't too dangerous and says they should stop the girl now. The mother tells her to relax since the girl doesn't have access to the vehicles. The woman relaxes, remembering that the cars operate only with facial recognition. But she's startled to see her mother typing something rapidly before pressing enter. In the garage, Han Lai is trying to hotwire a car like in the movies. Suddenly, the vehicle next to her opens its doors and displays a message that has been transferred from Han Shu to Han Yu Lai. She gets in the car, which confirms she's under 18. This activates the autopilot, and the system prompts her to fasten her seatbelt. She checks the coordinates her brother received, but the system tells her the destination is already set. She looks at the location and quickly realizes it's the Exile Zone. Maybe her mother set this up. The system asks if she wants to change the destination, and she says no. The steering wheel starts moving and the car accelerates out of the garage, promising to get there quickly. From a window, a girl asks the man if she isn't worried, since the young miss has never left her side. The mother looks thoughtful. She remembers when she was pregnant and Miss Wu Yu used to sing songs to her. She said that this child had to come into the world safely because her mother was waiting for her. She smiled back, but the memory shifts to a moment of shouting. One day, she was face to face with Wu Yu, saying something, but no audio was shown. Suddenly, the mother slaps Wu Yu, gathering her strength, screams that she'll hate her for all eternity. Back in the present, the girl asks if the mother is okay, and she replies that it's just some memories. She says she's sure they'll be able to change the future, and at this moment, she trusts Yu Lai. The car crosses a bridge and approaches the Exile Zone. For a girl who had never left the mansion, this place was incredible. But she tries to calm herself, reminding herself she's not there for fun. She must remember that she's outside the jurisdiction now. This area belongs to the bad guys. She sends an audio message to the group where Leo Chuan shared the location, introducing herself and saying she's 14 years old. She explains that she's coming in place of her injured brother and assures them not to worry. She's on her way to help. After sending it, she feels proud of herself. She looks out the window, wondering if her mother will forgive her for leaving without saying goodbye. She observes the city and sits quietly in the car, but she seems shy and grabs her phone again. She sees there are 0 messages. Apparently, she hopes someone would reply. The car then says the group shares its location with those in it. She asks to check, and the car informs her there are 2 individuals very close to her. One of them seemed quite familiar to the car's wild system. She's confused about what a wild system is. Suddenly, the car seems to change direction, heading straight toward one of the individuals. The scene shifts to a building. That boy who drew the map to trap Zhou Xi is there waiting for someone to respond to him. But just like the girl, he's being ignored in the group. Still, he's confident because Zhou Xi doesn't seem to have moved much. The problem is that he's finding it strange that Zhou Xi has been in the same spot for so long. Suddenly, something starts tapping on the window. A flock of birds seems to be trying to invade. Startled, the boy says, "Impossible." Zhou Xi enters with Balenciagas on his feet, stepping on the glass. The boy wonders how this is possible. How did Zhou Xi escape from that trap? Zhao Xi comments that it was very strange for them to trap him in a place without any Espers around. Because of that, he figured the boy's ability was sensing Esper energy. He ran a small experiment, and it seems he was right. The boy realizes Zhao Xi had planned something. Zhao Xi had left a distraction full of Esper energy and went there as fast as he could, tearing through all the buildings. Zhao Xi then says it's his turn to ask questions. He demands to know how many of them are there, why this boy is the only one alone in this place, and most importantly, how the Black Rings are using Esper abilities. The boy thinks there's no way he'll answer any of this and asks if it's true that monks don't kill. But Zhao Xi simply presses his sword to the boy's neck, warning him to talk. The boy says it's hard to talk with a blade at his throat. He touches the map, saying he'd love to tell Zhao Xi everything. But does Zhao Xi even have time to listen? That's when Zhao Xi notices one of the buildings blocking the path is starting to collapse. The boy sinks to the floor and asks if the monk will follow him for answers or leave to help the others. Zhao Xi stands there for a moment staring. Then he walks to the window and says he's leaving. In the next scene, Zhao Xi is running, announcing that the plans have changed and he's heading to meet Taya. She's in the middle of a fight with the little robot, asking what's changed. Smiling, she assumes Zhao Xi must have failed and is now trying to run away. But she warns him not to come near as she's having too much fun. She then asks the robot how long it thinks it can last. The poor thing is receiving a flood of activation failure messages. They really sent a girl who messes with digital devices to fight a robot, didn't they? The poor thing can't do anything. Meanwhile, Zhao Xi watches the chaos, commanding the birds to take the Black Rings to safety. The entire city is in ruins. A green energy is rushing through the corridors. Some people crushed under pillars are starting to be rescued. It seems Zhao Xi is determined to save everyone. What a good guy. In one room, a group is trapped trying to open the door. One of them comments that it's impossible. Something on the other side is blocking them all in. People start panicking, falling to the floor, saying they don't want to die like this. Others try looking out the windows, but they're completely sealed as well. One person puts their ear to the door and asks if anyone else can hear that. It sounds like a flock of birds outside. Suddenly, the birds smash through the door, flooding into the room. The people inside are confused as the birds begin carrying them like sacks of trash. Everyone is rescued and taken to another location. Zhao Xi carries another person and asks someone nearby to take care of them. That's when someone on the ground asks where Chao Qi is. A woman insists he's still in the factory and needs to be saved. Another person says it's impossible. There's no way the boy survived and remained in the exiled zone. Right then, the building starts to collapse, and she assumes Chao Qi must have died. Zhao Xi approaches and asks where her son is exactly. The moment she says he's in the underground storage, Zhao Xi disappears. One of the birds grabs him by the back and he tells her everything will be fine. In the underground storage behind a door, someone calls out asking if anyone is there. The area is starting to flood and a boy is on top of a table. He tries to stretch to reach the ceiling but can't get to it. After trying for a while, he finally grabs hold and is sure his mother is waiting for him. But then the ceiling collapses, he goes underwater. Kids, let's all learn to swim so we don't end up like this. His hand begins sinking and he's calling for help. Just as he's about to give up, the green energy enters the room and rescues him. Zhao Xi emerges from the rubble carrying the boy in his arms. The boy introduces himself as Chao Qi, and Zhao Xi reassures him that he's safe now. He tells Chao Qi to go to the open area where others are gathering as Zhao Xi has something to do. Zhao Xi ruffles the boy's hair and tells him he's very brave before vanishing again. Back on the bridge, a fierce battle is underway. The robot's system detects a malicious presence. It defends itself once more, preparing a primary objective. It seems its system is constantly rebooting. Taya comments on how tough it is. The robot's primary objectives are revealed to be Xiao Yu and Miss Wu Yu. Taya decides to bring out the American game, saying it's time to try this. The robot speaks, identifying itself as Suzanne, and advises Taya to run, saying this is her final warning. She asks what happens if she refuses. He responds that, except for Xiao Yu and Miss Wu Yu, all other Espers will be authorized for elimination. He then commands her to explode. But a message pops up stating his hand's energy has been cut off. He tries to activate levitation, mist, repair functions, and movement, but all fail. He attempts to analyze Taya's abilities, but she's smiling mockingly at him. She aims at the robot, saying it's useless because she's his worst nightmare. The system warns him that he's about to become immobile. Taya fires and bids farewell to the little robot. The system decides to shut down in 3, 2, 1, but the robot manages to catch the bullet. He drops the projectile as smoke begins to pour from his body. Xiaomai remarks that this was expected. A Su family's secret weapon, a manufactured prodigy. She walks away saying Master Su wouldn't mind if she took a few pieces for study, but suddenly she grabs his back and comments that the guy wouldn't care because he's already dead. Then someone behind her commands the wild system to open the door. Tia turns around confused. Clearly, someone is approaching, pulling off a dramatic drift. Hanley apologizes for making the robot wait. The young girl arrives in style, but the scene cuts back to Leo Chuan's fight. Leo tells Shan Yu that he knows he wouldn't have been able to dodge without his abilities activated. He asks if Shan Yu is now able to see the future. Suddenly, Shang Yu's expression changes. Leo, confused, immobilizes him. At that moment, Shang Yu is terrified, having a premonition that Leo Chuan will die. He sees the entire place exploding and himself screaming Leo's name. Shang Yu urgently warns Leo not to leave. Unconcerned, Leo simply asks what Shang Yu saw in the future. Shang Yu tells him he'll die. There's no way he'll survive this place. Leo Chuan lightly slaps his head, saying that it seems his ability didn't actually activate. But Shang Yu insists, explaining he's absolutely certain he saw Leo die, even if only for a second. He warns Leo to stay put, no matter what. Leo, however, starts smiling. He stands up and asks Shang Yu if he's sure about that. If so, why are they wasting time inside? Leo is eager to go outside and see what's really happening. Meanwhile, someone on a rooftop is observing the situation through binoculars. He comments that the fight is going poorly and the Silver Ring girl has been defeated. He tells his brother Tian to hurry or something terrible will happen. Qin Tian is driving a truck full of resources and tells him to hold on as he's almost there. Qin Tian and his friend announce that there will be a huge supply drop near the containers. Whoever gets there first will get the most. The crowd laughs but rushes desperately to the location. Of course, the gangs in the area don't want to miss out either. Tuka's friend remarks that if they really hand out all the supplies, his sister will kill them. Qin Tian jokes that no, only he will suffer the consequences. The friend agrees, saying that's fair. It seems Qin Tian will take all the blame. Still, Qin Tian is curious how Xena lost to a Black Ring girl. If a high-level Esper like her couldn't win, all of them might face the same fate. He hits the truck and tells the driver to speed up. At this point, he needs to see what's happening. Back in the fight, Siamai says the most beautiful moment in someone's life is the moment just. That's because it's the only second when everything is truly fair. Even the strongest Espers can't escape death. She apologizes, saying she forgot that Xena doesn't even have the strength to speak anymore. But then Xena calls her name. Siamai approaches and asks her to repeat herself. Xena asks what her name is, her vision blurring. Cruelly, Siamai replies that it doesn't matter since she's about to die anyway. In the void, someone calls Xena's name. She immediately recognizes it as her father's voice. Pieces of light align as she wonders where her father is. The scene changes to a house in the middle of nowhere. Xena is lying in bed and begins to wake up. She sees a ceiling with a dragon carved into it and slowly gets up. Her body aches and she notices bandages nearby. She realizes she hasn't died yet. She survived again. She gets out of bed and walks to a desk. She picks up some red sticks and observes them. That's when she hears someone asking Xena if he fertilized the vegetables today. The person also asks why he isn't working, to which he replies he was waiting for her to wake up. He says he's sure she would have been scared if she woken up to find no one around. Xena leans against the wall and sees a boy being scolded by a woman. The woman yells at him, saying he hasn't lifted a finger in the garden all week. Xena slowly opens the door as the woman warns the boy to get to work on the garden or the place will turn into a desert. The woman yanks the boy by his ear and tells him to get lost. Xena is confused because someone with a silver ring is bossing around someone with a gold ring. That's when Perrin asks if she's finally woken up. He chuckles while Xena stands there, a little unsure. When he asks if she likes gardening, the woman slaps him and tells him to stop bothering the girl. A little later, as they walk through the house, he says that, without bragging, when it comes to gardening, he's practically an expert. All the vegetables growing there were planted by him, and she's going to enjoy them at dinner. Xena stops and gazes at the horizon, then asks him why she was saved. Perrin questions whether she wouldn't regret leaving this fascinating world so young, but the girl simply replies that she has no reason to live. He's silent for a moment, then turns and says he's never had a daughter. If she didn't mind, she could become his daughter and join the Pei family. This way, she could leave behind all the pain of her past and start a new life with them. She wouldn't have to fear anyone anymore since nobody in Celestial City would know about her. Besides, apart from gardening, his second greatest talent in life is keeping secrets. Xena asks if he isn't afraid that she might cause problems, but he crouches down and says that if he were worried about that, he wouldn't have brought her here. She then asks what he wants her to do. Perrin questions why he would expect anything from her. But if a task would help her feel better in this place, he says he'd like her to protect a child like her with unlimited potential. Later in the garden, Perrin tells her to wear a hat because the sun is scorching today. She's harvesting tomatoes and green peppers, her least favorite vegetables. But when she glances to the side, she finds a dead bird. She picks it up and looks at it, realizing the creature is in pain. She tells it not to worry, it will all be over soon. Suddenly, Perrin appears and tells her to let it handle it. She hands him the bird and asks what he's going to do. To her surprise, he sets it on fire. She asks if he's the one who kills death, to which he replies, of course not. Confused, she wonders what he's trying to do. Perrin starts talking about the elements Espers can control. He explains that in Celestial City there are countless Espers with high-level magic. He then asks if she knows why only a select few achieve a special grade. The bird suddenly flies away, and he says he believes the secret lies in mastering both sides of one's power. Xena wonders what kind of resurrection flame this is. Seeing the bird fly, she asks why his flames don't burn, but instead heal. Xena wonders what kind of resurrection flame this is. Seeing the bird fly, she asks why his flames don't burn, but instead heal. He clarifies that heal is an exaggeration. It's more like giving a small boost. He begins condensing a lot of fire, explaining that those who see flames as a destructive force will naturally use them as weapons to kill. But he sees fire differently. Where there is death, there is also life. He creates a flaming tree and says it's essential to embrace the life-bringing aspect of fire. Maybe something like this could save her in difficult times. He points at her, explaining that the true potential in Esper lies deep within their heart. Xena names it the Heart of Fire. Perrin approves, saying he likes the name and that it will officially be called that from now on. Watching the bird fly away, Xena says it's just like her. Both have been given a second chance at life. She stands up and says she wants to learn it. Perrin agrees, saying it's time to see what she's capable of. They head to a room, which he declares will now be her training ground. He then walks to a small back room and orders G-Man to leave and stop watching soap operas. Xena greets G-Man, who just stares at her. Later, Xena is sweating, trying to imagine the Heart of Fire. A small flame appears and Perrin praises her, but it quickly explodes, sending her flying into a wall and leaving her smoking. Perrin tells her, "That's how you do it." Day by day, Xena keeps practicing. Even while suffering, she asks to keep going and Perrin comments on her determination. Amid the explosions, he explains that fire isn't her natural element. This means she'll have to train much harder than others to catch up. Time passes and G-Man observes the constant explosions from outside. The entire training room is now destroyed. Perrin remarks that her body is getting used to the burns. G-Man starts rooting for Xena. Passing by her, Perrin asks G-Man to deliver a snack when the time comes. A few days later, Perrin is watching soap operas when Xena pulls him away, saying it's time to train. The poor girl stumbles out of the training room, charred. She drapes a blanket over G-Man, who praises her hard work. Xena crouches and thanks G-Man for her support. Later, Xena mentions that the Heart of Fire is really working because she doesn't feel any pain anymore. Perrin praises her but advises her to take it a bit slower. Even if Xena never mastered the Heart of Fire, she had already become an incredible Esper. But Xena seemed discouraged. She wanted to learn this ability, but only special tier Espers seemed to be able to achieve it. Xena wasn't even close to understanding the mysteries of it all. Even so, she said it was too soon to give up. Perrin agreed and said they'd keep going at the same pace. Time passed. She trained during the day and ran at night. Seriously, when does this girl sleep? When it was time to work in the garden, she did everything at once to be as efficient as possible and returned to training. Even in the bath, she kept practicing. Before bed, she practiced too, which wasn't a great idea because she set the bed sheets on fire and had to run out of the room. The training room was completely destroyed and they had stockpiled a bunch of fire extinguishers. Once again, Xena collapsed to the floor, but she got back up saying, "Let's keep going." She kept getting back up over and over again, insisting on continuing, again and again, until it became redundant to say she continued. At this point, she must be 200 years old with how long she's been training. One day, a match is struck and Perrin says to be careful with the candle. The little girl had turned 10 years old. I thought she was about to retire after all those again and again moments, but apparently it had only been a year since she arrived at the house. They released confetti and congratulated her. Perrin handed her a box saying it was her present. He explained that it was a replica of something she'd been carrying that had broken. This one, however, had been crafted by the best blacksmith in the entire city. He asked if she liked it. Xena simply replied that she wouldn't disappoint him and promised to protect that child. Perrin laughed, saying that for now, she first needed to learn to protect herself. He told her to take it quickly. G-Man looked at her and also told her to take it. They didn't have time to delay anymore. Suddenly, G-Man disappeared. Xena, confused, called out for her, begging them not to vanish. Perrin told her not to be afraid, explaining that it was all just an illusion. It's just that they were running out of time. He urged Xena to grab it, shouting for her father. Xena began to feel pain, screaming for him not to disappear. She fell to her knees, begging him not to run away from her like that. She appeared to be running through a void, searching for him. In the midst of it all, she grabbed the red staff. But when she looked at her hands, it seemed to dissolve. Then she noticed something on her feet and wondered where she was. She collapsed to the ground in pain. Still being affected by Xiaomei's powers, she wondered where she was. She remembered Perrin telling her that she was like a force of nature. Like wildfire, she couldn't be contained. And now the fate she desired was finally in her hands. It turns out Perrin was the one who gave her the name Xena, and right now she wasn't very happy about what was happening. Xiaomei asked Yaoguang if he wanted confirmation of Xena's death. At that moment, Yaoguang stood up and shouted her name. Xena grabbed Xiaomei's leg, and when she turned around, everything exploded. Inside the domes, the two heard the impact. Shan Yu commented that it seemed like Xena had started fighting. Little did he know the girl had nearly died. Shan Yu told himself that he wouldn't let Leo Chuan die because of him. But Leo turned to him and told him to stop imagining him dead with his tiny brain. Leo declared that the only person capable of killing him was already dead. Outside, people shielded themselves. Xiaomei was flung into Yaoguang. Yaoguang asked if she could stand, and she replied that she was extremely fine. But in front of them was a cloud of flames. From the middle of it, Xena walked forward. Xena declared she still had received an answer. She wanted to know the name of the opponent who left her in such a state. Xiaomei was trembling. Yaoguang knew that Xiaomei's power relied on the element of surprise. Once people figured out that her tactics worked through touch, it became easy to avoid and defeat her. Still, it made no sense that Xena had escaped the death trap. How could someone with a silver ring be this strong? Perhaps this had something to do with why the 8 families wanted her dead. Shannon told Yao Guang to let her go, but he argued she wouldn't make it. Even so, she freed herself and approached the flames, turning back to smile at him. Yao Guang told her to go. Shannon turned to Xena, saying she realized Xena wouldn't find peace until she had an answer. She told her to remember the name Xena. Xena chuckled, commenting that it was a pretty ordinary name for someone so strange. Xena laughed, agreeing that was true. But as she grabbed her arm, she started noticing. Every part of her body felt like it was about to break. Yet strangely, she felt happy. Xena told her that thanks to what she did, her heart kept burning. Xena tells Xena to finish things quickly because she doesn't want others to see her in this state, especially that lazy guy. The scene shifts to a man watching something on TV. A girl standing in the middle of a storm says she's at the Leo family mansion and points to the center, where an explosion of energy is occurring. At the very core of that energy is a strange black point. Amid the energy, a boy is ascending into the sky. It's Leo Chuan. They suspect he might be a descendant of the divine tier. The girl is impressed by his power. Then Wu Yu appears and remarks that the child is indeed strong. It's precisely because of his strength that the color of his collar doesn't matter. The other girl, confused, asks what she's talking about. Wu Yu asks if they know why the rings exist. She explains that the rings are an easy way out for those living within the walls. It's because of the rings' existence that it's so easy to abuse and exploit others. This is how resources in society were taken under control so effortlessly. As long as the rings exist, senseless deaths won't stop. The rings are a grand lie upheld by a select few. Regrettably, Wu Yu admits she's also one of those few. She doesn't care whether the boy reaches the divine tier. What matters is whether he can break this division or at least avoid becoming someone like her. A girl with blue hair says it's naive to think that those benefiting from the rules would want to break them. The ghostly figure in front of her stays silent. The girl adds that Miss King Dai is also quite naive. King Dai counters by asking if the girl dislikes people criticizing that woman. The ghost responds, saying she doesn't care since both are loyal to Lin, not Wu. She simply wants to remind King Dai, no monster who's experienced the freedom of the world willingly returns to the cage. She advises King Dai to be cautious about trusting these people, or she'll lose everything. King Dai remains silent. The ghost continues, stating that no matter how many children she raises, nothing will change. Espers are fundamentally different monsters. Geniuses like Leo Chuan have no peak to their strength. Every time they use their powers, they continue evolving. On the other hand, the children she's raising all share the same outcome when they overuse their abilities. The ghost smashes a frame, spilling blood on Xiaomei. King Dai says she's already asked for more time for her. The only job the ghost has is to buy her more time with the council idiots. Suddenly, King Dai puts her hand on her head and apologizes for losing her composure. The ghost remarks that she's acting very unusual today. Looking back, he asks if perhaps she's finally found someone special. Back in the fight, the butterflies burn and fall to the ground, turning into blood. But Xiaomei insists it's not over. Above, Squirt tells the leader they need to help Xiaomei because she looks like she won't stop. But the leader calls him an idiot. Squirt starts crying, but the leader asks how many times he'll try to save her before realizing she doesn't want anyone's help. Yao Guang places a hand on his face, admitting that now he understands. Xiaomei has no intention of coming back. The entire area is filled with pink nature. Xena comments that it's truly a beautiful sight, but it's impossible for her to lose to the same person twice. Flames spread through the flowers, burning everything. Meanwhile, people from the city are arriving at the port. The guy in the beanie tells everyone to follow him. He'll lead them to the supplies. A little girl looks up the sky and reaches for one of the butterflies. Back in the dome, Xena wonders what disaster is unfolding. A huge bear has punched her. Squirt asks how she's doing, and Yao Guang notes that at least she's still alive. Yao Guang apologizes for pushing her too hard and asks if she's hurt. Squirt says it's okay as long as his sister is fine. Then he's on the phone with someone named Kuei Sai, telling her to meet them in the isolation zone and that they need to flee as soon as the mission is complete. Squirt, now being called Dudu, is tasked with keeping an eye on Xena. But then they hear a lot of people shouting near some containers. Looking around, they see a large crowd approaching their location. The guy in the beanie yells for everyone to stop pushing and stay away from him. One person bumps into Dudu and Yao Guang pulls him back. Suddenly, Chan Lang calls out to everyone from the top of the containers. The guy in the beanie panics, begging no one to notice him. He opens a container full of supplies and people rush in, grabbing everything they can. Some start eating immediately. Amidst the chaos, someone picking up food notices Xiaomei's hand. Yao Guang asks where the person is going. A child extends their hand and suggests putting a candy in Xiaomei's mouth to help her recover. The gesture makes Yao Guang a little flustered, but suddenly someone else kicks the child. A partner of theirs fires a shot into the air, ordering everyone to drop the food. He declares that from now on, the supplies are under the control of the cannibal gang. They start kicking and kneeing people, even forcing them to spit out whatever they've eaten. But Yao Guang stands up. It seems like he's about to handle this in American style. He orders them to grab what food they're taking and get out of his sight. It seems the gang won't last long as one of them points a gun at Yo Guang's head, ordering him to put his hands behind his back and leave. In an instant, a black blade pierces someone from behind. It seemed like our dear Kim Min-soo, but no, it was actually Chan Lang. Chan Lang comments that the sight was extremely unpleasant. Yo Guang wipes the blood off and the child on the ground asks if he's an Esper. Suddenly, everyone starts tossing their food in the air, shouting that the savior has arrived. Both Yo Guang and Chan Lang look confused. The child asks if they're there to save the Exile Zone. Yo Guang still doesn't understand why they're acting this way. Meanwhile, Duda reports that one of their mission targets has disappeared. In the middle of the distraction, Kim Chang grabs Chen and starts running. He asks why Chen is so beaten up, to which she replies he should see the other girl. She's in even worse shape. A few more minutes and Chen would have finished them all off. After a while, she says she's had enough and suggests he leave her and escape too. But Kim Chang tells her to listen carefully. It's the sound of the barrier deactivating. Shin Lang is observing from a distance when someone steps forward. It's Leo Chuan, who asks what all the noise is about. A frightened Chen Wai remarks that Chen is nowhere to be seen, but Leo says she can handle herself. Shin Lang mocks them, saying they've been hiding for too long when they're crying together in secret. Suddenly, he begins summoning numerous black swords around them. Leo simply says that the one who's about to cry is Tian Lang. Explosions erupt everywhere as people scramble to escape, shouting that in an Esper fight, it's every man for himself. Shin Lang declares that they'd better run as he's no ordinary Esper. He laughs like a madman, commenting that it's a shame they're just black rings. It seems someone was obliterated in the chaos. Chen Lang tells Leo Chuan that he took too long to show up and he's tired of waiting. Yo Guang, however, doesn't want to get involved in this fight. He knows that if they engage Leo Chuan now, it'll be impossible to keep Xiaomai safe. He checks his phone and Kisai reports that they've dealt with the special tier Esper and will arrive in a few minutes. Yo Guang smiles and then tells Leo Chuan that they have no intention of fighting him directly. If he hands over Shan Yu, they'll leave the area. The people at the top are feeling so generous that they won't even take revenge on the Leo family. However, if they refuse to surrender the divine child, it will be considered a declaration of war against the other 7 families. Leo Chuan retorts that they're taking too long to declare this war since he isn't there to play house. But he adds that they should be grateful because they should know who this child is. Confused, Shan Yu asks why they should be grateful. Leo Chuan recognizes the ability being used. It reminds him of Miss Wu Yu, who wielded the same power. He then tells the protagonist to listen carefully. Any black ring who can use abilities is doing so by feeding on his mother's blood. Shan Yu snaps, demanding to know what this feeding on her blood business is. Shin Lang mocks him, saying it's ridiculous, that the divine child is so clueless. Suddenly, both Leo Chuan and Shan Yu tell him to shut up. Shan Yu then asks what else he doesn't know besides this business about his mother's power. Leo Chuan admits that, unfortunately, he doesn't know much either. He recalls that when the Lin family captured Liu, they began researching immortality to extend Esper lifespans. Every family except the Leo family sent an advanced tier Esper to participate in the experiment. But the experiment was a failure. Instead of gaining immortality, his 7 participants became something neither monster nor human. The research then shifted to black rings as they realized it was easier to control them. Shan Yu asks where this lab is. Leo explains that it's like trying to find a ghost. They have no idea where it is even today. The narrative notes that the Leo family has consistently ranked 3rd among the families. 2 generations have passed with many changes, but they've never moved from that position. Still, Shan Yu is confused. Even with the support of the 3rd strongest family, they have no idea where his mother is. Regarding power, the leaders of Celestial City also carry secrets. This means Leo Chuan, Shen, and everyone else are now enemies of Celestial City. Shan Yu recalls Alvin's death and the moment he was strangled. He remembers his mother in her cell and clenches his fists. But then he calms himself. Leo Chuan tells him not to let his determination waver. If they sent these people here, it's because they fear what Shan Yu is capable of. It doesn't matter who controls the world, it will be their generation that breaks it. Shan Yu says he's tired of trying to understand it all. In the end, knowing or not knowing doesn't matter. What he remembers is that he's always dreamed of her. He's certain she's waiting for him, and no matter what happens, he's determined to get out of there. Leo smiles and says Shan Yu is still far from reaching that point. However, if he's truly determined, it's only a matter of time before he makes it happen. For now, the best option is to capture those bastards up ahead and force them to talk since they know about the lab. Suddenly, Yao Guang notices a bird flying overhead. It drops something and Shan Yu pushes Leo to dodge it, but unfortunately, it lands on Leo's suit. He looks at it, screams Zhaox's name, and asks if they were waiting for him. Everyone looks startled. It's not just Zhu Exide who's arrived, but the entire group still carrying Taya tied up in ropes. Earlier, at the moment Shan Yu was about to die, Zhou Exide checked his phone and saw the message Hanlai had sent. He couldn't believe they had sent a 14-year-old girl because her brother couldn't make it. He told the bird to guide them to her location. This was just when she was doing a drift on the bridge. The car nearly plunged into the sea, leaving Hanlai shaken. As she was about to throw a punch, warning her to forget about hurting her friend. An explosion rocked the bridge. Someone comments that it was a close call. It was Kisai who had saved the ground, telling her not to get distracted during a fight. He puts her down and both are confused. Looking at the wall in front of her, Hanley asks if it wasn't a child who attacked her. On the other side, Hanley's hand is embedded in the wall. The little girl is no joke. Looking at her hand, she says it barely missed. Suddenly, Suzanne gets up, announcing that his system is back online. Hanley approaches and asks if he's okay. He replies by saying her full name, and she notes that people only call her that when she's about to get scolded. Slowly, he stands up and spreads energy across the bridge, warning her to watch her step as something is approaching. Tia asks what Kaisai is doing. The two team up to finish off the little girl. But Kaisai retorts that if he had been a minute late, she'd already be dead. His priority is getting out alive. Raising the entire bridge, he sends parts of it flying away. Suzanne advises her to grab onto the railing as if that would help much. He sends tentacle-like projections to grab the car on the other side of the bridge. Part of the bridge collapses into the sea, but they remain on top. Holiday comments that they're trapped in the middle of everything. Suzanne analyzes the situation and announces that the bridge will collapse in 1 minute. He calculates the distance and warns that if he gets close to that woman, he'll lose control of the system. He decides to throw the little girl across since the woman doesn't seem like a threat to her, but he cautions that there's only one chance. He activates his thrusters and tells her to get ready. However, she overdoes it, accidentally pinning him to the ground. Confused, he asks what she's doing, and she apologizes, saying she activated her power. The bridge begins to collapse. The car's wild system says it hates water and will think of something. Hanlai reassures it, saying she has a great idea. Meanwhile, atop the collapsing bridge, Taya is puzzled about what they're doing. Kisai, on the other hand, is worried. He has a strange feeling and just wants them to leave quickly. The car accelerates on the bridge, with Suzanne standing on top of it. As the bridge falls, the car speeds up again and Suzanne activates his thrusters. The entire structure collapses, but they manage to escape, almost flying through the air. On the other side, their enemies are fleeing. Tia declares they won't make it across, activating her power and wishing them to go to hell. Suzanne shuts down and the car starts to fall. They sink into the water as Kisai yells for them to hurry. He realizes they're terrified and just tells them to run. Stones begin floating as someone quickly moves across them. Jalexai has arrived. He unleashes a slash, sheathes his sword, and creates a small tornado to lift himself. This guy has style. Seeing the little girl is alive, he congratulates them. A short time later, Tayat is immobilized and swearing to kill those two bastards. Suzanne asks if it wouldn't be better to gag this lunatic. Hanlai immediately agrees. Jalexai calls for her, startling her. She asks what it is. He tells her she fought well, but that's as far as she's going. It's time for her to go home. A memory plays in her mind. She's playing rock, paper, scissors with her brother and winning. She teases him for being terrible at the game while he just laughs. She runs off and he tells her to be more careful not to fall. As she enters the room, she stops at the door. Whenever she saw that person, she felt she shouldn't interrupt him. Her brother appeared and asked why she was standing there and not saying hi to Uncle Zachi. Uncle Zachi wasn't thrilled about being called uncle. Later, Hanshu sits next to him, placing a box on the table. Inside is a vegan cake. Zachi pushes it back, appreciating the gesture but saying he can't accept it. Hanshu insists, saying his mother made it and he hasn't even taken a bite. He's sure that in this freezing storm, Zachi needs the energy. Finally, Zachi relents and accepts, admitting defeat. Hanshu asks Zachi if he came all this way just to deliver the vegan cake. Hanshu replies that obviously he didn't. He came to have a conversation with Master Zanchi. Zachi asks if that's supposed to be him, confused for a moment but deciding to figure it out. Hanshu calls out to him and says he's been considering abandoning his role as a guardian. Zachi is shocked, but Hanshu quickly tells him not to overreact. He's just joking. However, Zachi senses something off and asks what's really going on for him to joke about something so serious. Hanshu falls silent and explains that Yao Lai's powers have been fading. Every night when the sun sets, she becomes no different from any other person. He adds that Zachi must already know that Miss Wu Yu has become a target because of her immortality. A power like that creates extreme conflict fueled by human greed. The fact that Hanlai can suppress powers makes him wonder what others might do if they discovered this secret. Zachi is about to say something, but Hanshu continues, stating that he's already made his decision. There are only 2 years left until the prophecy's date, and during that time he wants to figure out why his sister's powers keep fading. If he can solve the mystery by then, he will accept the role of guardian. If not, he will abandon the position and escape with his sister, Hanlai. He doesn't care if people call him a coward or worse. To him, the divine child is still a stranger. He apologizes but says it's inevitable. He will be the selfish older brother. Later, Hanlai tells Uncle Zachi that they're leaving. He pinches her cheeks and tells her to call him Big Brother instead. Hanshu tries to intervene but gets punched by her. Zachi wishes them a safe journey and watches as they leave. The idea of being a selfish older brother lingers in his mind. Some time passes and a bird brings a letter. The letter asks Zhaoqi to take care of her for him. Back on the bridge, Tia is tied up with ropes attached to the car, and Suzhan orders her to keep quiet. He closes the hood, and as he looks back, the system warns him. The conversation isn't going well, and the mood is tense. He quickly decides to get in the car, which advises him not to interfere. Zhaoqi tells Han-Lai that there's no way she can go back the same way they came. Once they pass through the gate, the car will take her home. He instructs her to stay in contact until she's safely back. Turning to leave, he tells her to get in the car. But Han-Lai grabs his arm and asks if he doesn't see her as someone who makes her own choices. She already understands what it means to fight and the consequences of defeat. She considered all of this before coming here and doesn't want to be treated as her brother's little sister. She reintroduces herself, declaring that she's a special tier Esper and will assume her brother's guardian role. For a moment, Zhaoqi sees himself in her, recalling when he made a similar decision for his older sister. He observes her as Han-Lai begins crying, saying she's no longer a little girl who needs her brother by her side all the time. After a moment of silence, Zhaoqi closes his eyes and agrees, but she must promise to stay by his side every night when the sun sets. In his mind, he apologizes to Han Shu, thinking that at least this way, having her nearby is a way to protect her. Meanwhile, the car comments that Han Shu should stop eavesdropping on others' conversations. He denies it, but the system reveals that it's analyzing the dialogue. Later, everyone gets into the car. Suzhen activates autopilot, but the car deactivates it, claiming it's not equipped to handle driving after nearly drowning them. Han-Lai reassures them, saying it's okay because her big brother is here to save the day. She looks at Xiaoqi, saying they're counting on him. But the poor monk knows nothing about technology and definitely can't drive. Suzhen is forced to take the wheel, downloading an online manual on how to drive. Han-Lai jokes that she figured Chu would know how to pilot, while the poor monk is dismayed at being called uncle. They accelerate and the scene shifts to a mansion. A man with green hair complains that these hybrids are too weak. They've spent so much money to produce this garbage. Another man, lounging in a bathtub, advises him to be more patient. Distorted, corrupted, and consumed, he remarks that the scene the patriarch is waiting for hasn't happened yet. The green-haired man suspects he knows something and demands an explanation. The twisted man says it was the patriarch himself who handpicked these 6 individuals. He's confident the eldest brother never makes uncertain choices. There must be something special about these kids, like a hidden ability or connection. But the green-haired man, frustrated, breaks what he's holding, angry that the patriarch never tells him anything. To make matters worse, the control of the lad has been given to someone outside the family. The distorted man puts on headphones and leaves, advising him to keep an eye on things. The green-haired man, looking up, calls for someone to come and remove the mirror. Back in the combat scene, Shan Yu notices that new allies have arrived. Suzhen performs an analysis, reporting that the boy is weak but stable and mentally sound. Joexia, meanwhile, thinks this isn't the time for a reunion. But Shan Yu is confused about something else. Why does Leo Chuan look more surprised than he does? Suddenly, Taya and Keisai are thrown to the ground. Yo Guang looks up and sees Dudu's face, immediately instructing him to find Xena. From above, Tianlang watches him. He makes some hand signals and the other clenches his fist. Yo Guang activates his power, and everyone feels the killing intent. Han-Lai is surprised to have finally found the person her brother was destined to protect. Zhao Exi instructs Suzan and Han-Lai to keep an eye on the 2 captives and ensure they don't escape their bindings. Han-Lai acknowledges the order while Leo Chuan stares at the ground looking confused. Suddenly, Leo gives the protagonist a slight push. As Shan Yu prepares to speak, Leo closes his fist, creating an electric barrier around him. Shan Yu asks why he's doing this, and Leo explains that it's perfectly safe inside. He advises Shan Yu not to overthink it, saying he'll be back in a second. At that moment, Tianlang activates the black dust. Shadows begin spreading across the port. Jiaoxai easily cuts through one of them, while Suzan and Han-Lai defend the captives. As the shadows approach the bindings, Han-Lai stomps the ground and punches, declaring they won't take them away. The leader of the crazed group enjoys sending waves of smoke toward Leo Chuan, but Leo's lightning easily pierces through it. Leo eyes Tianlang, who comments that this is exactly what he was waiting for. Suddenly, Leo Chuan vanishes and reappears in front of him. Meanwhile, Shan Yu is surrounded by shadows. Realizing his situation, he knows he won't be able to do anything. Tang Lai throws a punch at Leo Chuan, but Leo easily dodges. Leo taunts him, saying that if he has any tricks up his sleeve, he should use them now instead of wasting time. To Leo, every minute is extremely valuable. They begin trading blows, and Tianlang asks who Leo thinks he is. Once again, Tianlang activates the black dust. Attacks come from behind Leo Chuan, but Leo seems to sense them, jumping out of the way and delivering a kick that Tianlang barely blocks. The blow sends Tianlang flying, and Leo tells him to stop trying to trick him with phantom attacks. The enemy glances elsewhere, prompting Leo to unleash a barrage of lightning strikes. Leo warns him to pay attention to what he's doing, and then charges for another punch. Once again, Tianlang defends and is sent flying, destroying half of the port in the process. Tianlang, visibly worse for wear, doesn't look too good now. It seemed like he'd be more of a challenge. Surely he must have some hidden dark power to turn the tide. It's always like this. Shen Lang mutters that if it weren't for having to keep an eye on the 3 captives, he wouldn't have been injured like this. He grabs a steel beam embedded in the ground and rips it out. Looking at Leo in the sky, he declares that he'll leave this moment of triumph for now. As Leo continues advancing toward him, the black dust begins to wrap around Tia. Suzhan warns her to be careful, but she's pulled away. Tia tries to hold onto the rope, refusing to give up and attempting to pull the captives back. Suzhan approaches, but he notices the injury on her arm and asks when it happened. He tells her to take off her jacket so he can activate the medical protocol, but she refuses. Instead, she ties the rope around her waist, telling Suzhan that before they deal with the enemies, he must promise to help her keep the captives restrained. Suzhan acknowledges her decision and says that in that case, they should finish this quickly. Zhao Exile continues fighting against the black dust, but realizes that Shan Yu is surrounded and knows he'll have to help him. However, constant attacks force Zhao Exile to defend himself. Inside the cage, Shan Yu's clone mocks him, calling him pathetic. The clone taunts him, saying Leo Chuan is clearly underestimating him by locking him in this tiny cage and forcing him to watch. The clone asks why Shan Yu is waiting so long and if he doesn't want to prove everyone wrong. All Shan Yu has to do is let him out, and this farce will end. But Shan Yu responds that Leo Chuan didn't do anything wrong. He only spoke the truth. It's undeniable that Shan Yu is the weakest person in this place right now. Worse yet, as the weakest, he's still the primary target. Despite this, he's puzzled. If everyone knows he's the weakest, why are they fighting Leo Chuan and Zhu Exai instead of him? This sense of isolation gives him a bad feeling. Yo Guang stands there staring at him. Shan Yu realizes something is wrong. He remembers warning Leo Chuan that he was destined to die. But Leo had merely tapped his forehead and told him to observe things more closely. Suddenly, Shan Yu feels something strange and begins to lose consciousness. When he comes to, he finds himself in a tunnel filled with red lights. Looking around, he sees several blood-filled cells. He notices something unusual on his hand. Looking at it, he sees that it's covered in black dust. Shan Yu remembers the Jiangling attack and wonders why it's there. He starts questioning if he's entered some sort of strange space, since he's still unfamiliar with his own powers. He urgently needs to find a way out. Looking to the side, he sees a boy sitting on a bed and wonders why there's a child there. He tells the boy that this is an Esper zone and warns that it's too dangerous to stay. Shan Yu enters the room, grabs the boy's arm, and says they should leave. The boy doesn't respond, but instead asks if Shan Yu can stand on his own. Suddenly, the loud alarm stops. The boy remarks that for Shan Yu to have reached the 5th layer of consciousness, he's not as weak as he looks. Shan Yu lets go of his arm and demands to know who he is and what he means by consciousness. The boy stands silently for a moment before saying, "I am Yo Guang. Remember that name." Immediately, Shan Yu recognizes the eyes. The boy declares that both of them are divine children. He grabs Shan Yu's arm and says they should talk elsewhere since he doesn't like staying in this part of the space. When Shan Yu is about to ask what's going on, the surroundings shift into a digital-like world. The entire space transforms and suddenly they're in a room. Looking around, Shan Yu quickly recognizes it as the room he shared with Alvin. Yo Guang sits on the sofa and comments that apparently this storage space is the safe zone within Shan Yu's consciousness. It's not much different from what he likes, a sort of box to store toys. Strangely, Shan Yu warns him to get up and not sit on the sofa, or at least, not to touch it. They sit in silence until a blue energy wave passes through Shan Yu. He hears a gunshot and wonders what's happening. Yo Guang apologizes, saying he didn't mean to trigger any bad memories. He suggests they go somewhere else. But suddenly, Shan Yu grabs his arm and demands to know what he's doing with those eyes. The boy looks confused, but Shan Yu accuses him of lying. Clearly, he's trying to buy time and trap Shan Yu in this place. Shan Yu insists that this isn't Yo Guang's consciousness and neither is it his own. Confused, Yo Guang asks why he would trap him here. Shan Yu states that he knows he's the only one who can see through illusions. Yo Guang's expression changes and Shan Yu declares that even if he doesn't fully understand his own powers, he'll rely on his other senses if he can't trust his eyes. Shan Yu hears gunshots, feels a metallic sensation in his hand, and catches the scent of blood. He tells Yo Guang that as an enemy, it wouldn't be unusual for him to have studied Shan Yu's past and created this place based on his memories. But to Shan Yu, that's a low blow. The boy acknowledges Shan Yu's insight, asking when he made the mistake that exposed him. Shan Yu changes his expression, looks at Yo Guang, then turns away. He says that the safe place he once cherished disappeared a long time ago. He adds that all Yo Guang needs to do now is tell the truth to Leo Chuan and the others. Back to the fight. Leo Chuan is charging toward Tian Lang, but notices something happening in the cage. Shan Yu, who appeared to be asleep, seems to awaken. He mutters that what the eyes see isn't reality. Taking a step out of the cage, he's surrounded by black dust. He declares that none of it is real as everyone shouts for him. Nearby, Xena is healing. Qin Shan is impressed by the fire that heals. Xena looks at him and sarcastically asks how long he's going to keep moaning. She explains that healing takes forever since she's not made of steel. Qin Shan stands up and says that staying here makes them vulnerable to being found. He suggests taking her out of the battlefield so she can heal in peace. He offers his hand, but she refuses, saying she's not going anywhere. She insists that someone will eventually come to check on her and at least she can distract them. She tells Qin Shan to leave and not interfere with her healing. Realizing she doesn't want to involve him, Qin Shan hesitates. Suddenly, they both sense someone approaching. Qin Shan starts taking off his jacket and Xena asks what he's doing. He replies that she should stop trying to act tough on her own. At that moment, Dudu appears, saying he's finally found them. Qin Shan looks confused and Xena teases that she'll leave him to deal with the kid. Back in the fight, when Shan Yu steps out of the cage, he notices the entire port is colorful. Containers are floating as if in another world. Looking up, he sees his friend suspended in the sky, staring at him. In that instant, Shan Yu realizes this is nothing but a dream. A voice remarks that noticing it's a dream so quickly is quite clever. It's his clone, who asks if he's not afraid to see the world being destroyed right before his eyes. Shan Yu responds that if it's just a dream, there's nothing to fear. He guesses that the clone's power is to create dreams to manipulate people. But if it doesn't work on someone, they're beyond its reach. Shan Yu is sure there must be a limit to the number of people the clone can affect within this dream world. And that's why, within the primary dream world, he created his second layer to pull Shan Yu further down. Shan Yu questions if he's correct about this. Then Yo Guang appears from within the clone, saying that Shan Yu isn't entirely right. After all, he never intended to trap him in this dream for long. He only needed to buy some time for his allies. Still, Yo Guang admits he's impressed by Shan Yu's attentiveness, especially since he's only had his powers for 2 days. Shan Yu responds that this has nothing to do with powers. Even if he weren't an Esper, he would easily seen through all of this. The enemy asks how Shan Yu could have done that. Shan Yu replies that he would have left the cage from the beginning so as not to be a burden on those helping him. Yo Guang remarks that Shan Yu is being overly arrogant. He then declares that the dream world is coming to an end. It's a pity that the only conversations they've had were in this dream world, but he's eager to speak in reality. It's time to return to the real confrontation. Suddenly, everyone starts experiencing severe headaches. Shen Lang comments that it feels like his head is being pierced by metal. One of his allies tells him not to get so angry as he's busy checking on Xia Mei and asking if she's dead. Yo Guang looks at her and demands she return his weapon. Calmly, she hands it over, saying she was just joking. It wasn't anything serious. Meanwhile, Shan Yu's and Leo Chuan's group is completely stunned. They have no idea how this happened or how the captives escaped their bindings. Hanley insists that she made sure they couldn't escape, but Shan Yu is already running toward her. Leo Chuan shouts, saying he'll kill everyone. Anlai stands there wide-eyed, wondering if Zhao Xi is mad at her. That's when she looks down. Her vision blurs and she collapses. Su Zhan catches her and tells her not to panic. He activates the healing mode, noting that the bullet went through her abdomen. She remarks that it hit exactly where the rope had been tied. Tia mutters that she should have taken another shot. Yo Guang stares at the leader as the scene flashes back to a few minutes earlier. When reinforcements had arrived, the signals Yo Guang used were codes they had devised as children. It meant he would pull everyone into a shared dream world to see what could be done. Yo Guang thought it was unfortunate that he had to put his friend in a situation to fight all 4 enemies alone, but he hoped his friend wouldn't die in his own dream. Jiang Lang was confident that no matter how many foes faced him, he would prevail. When the group dream began, a 5-minute timer started. Calmly, Yo Guang approached Shan Yu, thinking he was more straightforward than expected. But as soon as he reached for Shan Yu, Leo Chuan's barrier activated. Yo Guang was confused about how Leo's power could be active even in a dream. Then he noticed Shan Yu moving his hand. Even for someone who could manipulate the dream world, dealing with this duo would be tough. Yo Guang freed his allies from their bindings and ordered them to stand up. He glanced at Su Zhan and thought this might be the solution. He told his allies they had some problems in this dream world and advised them to keep their distance. It didn't seem like he would let them escape for free, but Yo Guang insisted. That's when she grabbed the weapon, saying she'd leave him a parting gift before escaping. At that moment, Shan Yu heard the sound of a gunshot and pulled Yo Guang into his consciousness. Back in the present, a sketching guy says he's ready. Someone responds that it's time to begin. The markings on the ground glow red as everyone in the group prepares. Zhao Xi runs to Han Lei, reassuring her that she'll recover. He asks Su Zhan about her condition. Su Zhan explains that after this treatment, her life is no longer at risk. The only remaining issue is that he'll need to treat her shoulder too. Han Lei starts calling out to someone trying to say something. Shan Yu approaches and asks if they're okay. Han Lei admits that she made a serious mistake. Suddenly, black dust wraps around Shan Yu. Everyone panics as Su Zhan's system warns that Shan Yu is in critical danger. The energy seems to form into a cocoon. Meanwhile, Qin Tian appears to be taking a beating. He spits a tooth into his hand and punches the stuffed bear Dudu in the face, demanding to know how the cursed bear dared to knock out his tooth. Xena tells him to stop and points to the boy ahead of them. Qin Tian notices that Dudu is heavily injured. The boy's ability seems to be empowered love, allowing him to take damage on behalf of others. Qin Tian is confused because he didn't actually punch anyone. As the stuffed bear stares at him, Qin Tian grows more baffled. He comments that there's clearly some connection between the cursed bear and the boy. Xena, meanwhile, is more confused as to why Qin Tian even punched the bear repeatedly. The boy took the damage but showed no sign of feeling pain. Standing up, Qin Tian asks for the boy's name. But as he remembers when he asked Xena her name, he starts trembling. Xena tells Qin Tian to relax, saying she doesn't attack everyone just for knowing their name. Dudu introduces himself, and when she asks for his last name, he says he doesn't have one. Xena threatens him, reminding him how badly Xena got beaten, and warns him to leave before the same happens to him. But Dudu grabs his teddy bear and declares that his brother Yo Guang told him she has to die, so he has to complete the mission. Qin Tian tells the kid he's too young to mess with them. Dudu insists he's not leaving. Xena observes and remarks that if she's not mistaken, using his powers is like pouring hot water into a plastic cup. If he overuses them, he'll eventually melt and die. Dudu admits he already knows this, and Xena asks if he's really willing to risk his life to kill her. She guesses that they must have promised him a bright future. Dudu starts crying and pleads with her to cooperate, promising not to hurt anyone else. They lock eyes and Xena starts laughing. Her laughter grows wild, like a mad woman, and she pulls a hairpin out of her hair. It seems there's no point in continuing the conversation. Qin Tian tries to calm her down, reminding her that the boy is clearly under 10 years old. But Xena snaps at him to back off. She questions why she should sympathize with a child when her friends are dying. She steps toward Dudu, saying it's impossible to save them both now. Activating her heart of fire, she prepares to attack. Dudu orders the teddy bear to kill her. The bear extends its arm, but it's hit by her violet flames and begins burning. Dudu also starts burning. It's a pitiful sight, and it's hard to tell if he'll come back in some stronger, vengeful form. Characters like him often do. For now, though, Dudu is alive but crying, asking why. Xena picks up the teddy bear and hands it back to him. She tells him that even at his age, there's a limit to how many times he'll be spared out of pity. Then, she orders him to leave. Standing up, she tells Qin Tian to take care of the child while she deals with the others. She warns that as long as the doll is injured, the boy won't regret his actions. Qin Tian watches silently as Xena runs toward the group, yelling to Shan Yu that she's on her way. In the fight, everyone is surrounded by black dust. Suzhan is forced to deactivate healing mode. Leo Chuan is running, being chased by the energy. He fires a lightning attack, calling Joex's name. Joex is surrounded, but when Leo calls for him, he activates a green magic that summons a sword. Leo slices through part of the energy and declares they need to save Shan Yu. Shan Yu is being pulled by the energy, struggling to free himself. Once again, Leo Chuan steps in to save the day, or not entirely, as Shan Yu is still falling. Leo catches him mid-air with style, gently placing him on the ground. Shan Yu is amazed that Leo managed to block all of that on his own. Leo tells Shan Yu to stop causing trouble, and Shan Yu apologizes. Leo warns him to stay focused, as the danger isn't over yet. Suddenly, Leo's expression changes and he pushes Shan Yu aside. Leo is struck. A blade pierces him. He looks at Shan Yu in shock as the sword falls to the ground. Zhao screams for him. Hanlai blames herself, saying it's all her fault and that she has to do something to fix it. Suzhan tells her to calm down, warning that she'll worsen her shoulder injury. Suddenly, there's an explosion. Shan Yu realizes this is the exact moment he saw in his vision. A hand grabs his chin. It's Tian Lang, who asks where Shan Yu thinks he's going. Shan Yu turns to see Tian Lang drinking his own blood, muttering that divine blood cannot be wasted. Terrified, Shan Yu watches as a drop of water falls to the ground. The trap in the middle of the port activates as rain begins to fall, with Leo Chuan's sword lying on the ground. Xena arrives, crouching to pick up the sword. She calls out for Leo Chuan and Shan Yu, but the area seems empty. She eyes a pile of stones and senses something there. At first, she appears ready to fight, but her expression shifts. Leo Chuan is standing in the rain, drenched in blood. He pulls a shard of glass from his shoulder and tosses it to the ground. He says he thought she was dead. Xena asks if he's disappointed. She then questions how he couldn't handle just these few people. Leo responds that his only issue is that his suit is ruined. The two stand in silence, staring at each other, wondering about the next move. Leo finally says that for now, they should leave. Turning, he tells her to follow him. Scene change. Inside a house, Xena opens a window. She asks about the little girl, who looks about 8 years old. Leo corrects her, saying the girl is actually 14. They mention that the girl was shot, and they aren't sure if she'll survive. Xena stays silent. Leo mentions that they're inside that floating structure. He explains that aside from the girl, Joex, and the efforts of Mr. Su, also known as Suzhan, had also reached the battlefield. Xena steps away from the window and sits on the couch. She comments that she hates the rain because it reminds her of the day of the psychic test. Then she asks Leo if he remembers the day right after the test. He falls silent for a moment before replying that it was so long ago he can't really recall. She then thanks you for a like on this video that helps Momoro make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.